Greetings, my fellow Americans. This is your president, Samuel Ronan speaking, and today is another day of streaming, another day of American politics and this dystopian nightmare that we find ourselves in. Today is Taco Tuesdays, where we discuss local politics or national politics. Some of the big things that we're going to be discussing today are, of course, the New York City mayoral campaign. The election that is happening right now, this very second. In fact, as our stream continues, we might transition to covering that entirely. Also, we will be covering like the Virginia governor as well as your normal news for the day. Something we're also going to start doing is integrating key major policy provisions, because one of the things I feel like this channel is lacking is a broader appeal. You all are a bunch of political junkies. We are in this thing. But what we don't need is more of that. We already have different streamers that go about and do the news and get into the nuance and the political junkie aspect of things. I want to be more of a politician who happens to stream and relates to all of you. So we're going to try that out for a couple weeks and see how well that is actually received, and we'll go from there. But we are always trying to improve. Hello, Anna. Welcome to the stream. Welcome, everybody, of course, that's watching. That's my intro. Let's get to it. I think we're going to go ahead and start with the healthcare. We'll just do a really quick...
The rising cost of healthcare is a pressing concern for most Americans, and it's hitting home hard. A recent AP-NORC poll reveals that the majority of U.S. adults are...
Hold up. This guy is 14 total subs, and we're watching it. Let's go.
Are anxious about the increasing financial burden of healthcare, especially as they navigate the complexities of choosing health coverage for the upcoming year. But here's where it gets controversial. These worries are heightened by the ongoing government shutdown, which has left millions uncertain about their future health costs.
So, we covered this yesterday. With the government shutdown looming and Medicare cuts coming, the fundamental outcome of this is that the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Now, subsidies, for those of you who don't know, because I think a lot of people hear the word subsidy and they think rich people socialism, and in reality that means the government pays for a subsidized amount towards a thing. So like we could literally have subsidies on honey, for instance, right? If there was a 70-cent subsidy on honey, that would mean the government is paying 70 cents for every jar of honey that we choose to buy. So the Affordable Care Act subsidies were subsidies for health insurance, because it's mandatory to have health insurance, but not access to health care. Make that make sense. But that's the point. The Affordable Care Act was basically a subsidized government health care program that made the health care premium basically cost half of what it is, because the government would have paid for half. So when we say that the premiums are actually going to double or get worse in cost, it's because the subsidies, the government aspect of it, is going out the window. And that is a huge, 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 huge problem.
A staggering 60% of Americans are deeply concerned about their health costs skyrocketing in the next year, according to the survey.
I mean,
this fear transcends age groups and insurance status, indicating a widespread sense of vulnerability. And this is the part most people miss. It's not just about rising costs, it's also about access to care and the security of having health insurance. The poll uncovers multiple healthcare-related worries among Americans. Approximately 40% are highly concerned about their ability to afford necessary healthcare and medications, access healthcare when needed, or maintain their health insurance coverage.
All right, I'm sorry. I have to critique the video because I think this is an AI dub. And the only thing that keeps changing in this background is how many blocks this healthcare.gov screenshot covers. I have to admit, though, if you're not paying attention to it and you're just listening, this really is an eye-catching way to do videos. Simply Steve, on average, states each paid $80 billion in federal taxes in 2024. Think of what the states could do if they didn't send that money into a closed Fed government. No, I 100% agree with you, dude. $80 billion could easily subsidize state healthcare. And I think Massachusetts and California do with their own state dollars. Now, of course, there's the federal dollars that go outright, to the federal government. But like the state income taxes go towards funding state-level healthcare and at least a couple states that I'm aware of. So it's not like there isn't even a framework for that in America or in the several states. It's just one that we are broadly not adopting because of private interests. Yeah, no, I'm not critiquing you, Anna. I think the collective voice is a AI. So I'm gonna unsub. But I think they're an AI channel that is at the moment doing very low quality work. The $86 billion my state sent in could have funded welfare for every citizen of the state for 5 years. Yeah, no, and that's kind of the thing, right? Like, when we talk about healthcare, especially subsidized healthcare, especially state-sponsored healthcare, we're talking about billions upon billions of dollars that states spend in federal taxes and in their state spending. Our tax dollars at work. And fundamentally, right, like, and I'm trying to not go too on Professor Ronan here when I say this, but take the state of Ohio budget. So the main operating budget, I think we'll go with the in brief, is $41 billion, right? 40, that's what this number means. 12 of that is federal grants, right? And then the number go up, right? So forecasted. But 14 billion in federal grants, and then personal income tax and sales tax, right? 13 billion is from sales, 10 is from personal income tax, right? So population of Ohio is 11.88 million. Right? And there's $24 billion right there. And the thing about this is that's about 12 million people, $24 billion. Each citizen pretty much contributes $2,000 in taxes to the state of Ohio. So, and obviously that population includes children and retirees, right? So what I'm getting at though is what's the actual operating budget of hospitals? What's the actual operating budget of schools? What's the actual operating budget of X, Y, and Z, right? And if you really get down to the brass tacks, the real brass tacks of operating budgets, if you got rid of the privatized, the for-profit elements of healthcare, of education, of construction, of, well, hell, policing and incarceration, you would find that this $44 billion is actually more than sufficient to cover all the costs of social programs in the state of Ohio. And if we pulled up any other states, we would find largely the same. And that's the point that Simply Steve is making, and that is being outlined here. We have the money. We have it allocated. But people keep playing politics and wanting to undermine that aspect, and that causes people to live in fear and concern over their future of their healthcare and their access to healthcare. Right, state governments are open and working, and I honestly don't think I've ever heard of a state government shutdown. Has there ever been a state government shutdown? Oh, wow. Minnesota and Jersey. Wow. Apparently, those are very far and few between. But to the point where when politics is local, state, local levels, right? People tend to show up, right? If I have to only drive 50 miles or 100 miles to get to the Columbus Capitol building versus having to go to DC or march in my capital and maybe DC ignores me, right? If my state shuts down, I know where to go and I know how to get there, and it's usually in the center of the state. So, all of which is to say, states tend to not shut down, and states have budgets just as much as everything else does. And it's the way those monies are allocated and what they're put towards that determines whether or not people have access to things that they need or don't. And what we're seeing a lot, especially in Republican-dominated states, is that those social programs continue to be eroded and eroded and eroded, and people continue to struggle, and being angrier and angrier and angrier, yet they keep falling for the same lie, that it's the Democrats' fault. It's like, buddy, you're in Texas. There hasn't been a Democrat in power in Texas since the flip of conservatives went from Democrat to Republican. So, like, it's that kind of thing that we need to overcome as a population.
With Medicaid beneficiaries already shopping for next year's plans and open enrollment periods approaching for other health plans, the pressure is on. The situation is so dire that some, like 46-year-old Latoya Wilson, are making drastic changes. Wilson, an independent nurse consultant, is applying for more jobs than ever before, driven by the fear of rising premiums and the desire for the stability of employer-sponsored insurance. The current state of health...
Yeah, you know what? I can't take that anymore. Where's the other healthcare video? Are they at the bottom? Or did you just add them? 'Cause I'm not seeing it. Well, we'll cover more. I just wanted to do right under that one is the dark side of Dick Cheney. Let me click on this.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org.
All right. Expert explains surging health
as
insurance
the government
premiums.
shutdown extends into its 29th day.
This is still the news. It is still current, and it's still talking about healthcare, and we can still talk about it. So let's go.
Americans who depend on coverage through the Affordable Care Act are getting their first look at the healthcare sticker shock. Access to the new ACA premiums were released on Tuesday.
Jeez.
According to the health policy group KFF, the average cost is jumping 26%. And without the government subsidies, the out-of-pocket costs will go up even more. For tonight's interview, we are joined now by Larry Levitt, KFF's Executive Vice President for Health Policy. Mr. Levitt, thanks for joining us. So let's start with this. How much more could people have to pay if these credits are not extended?
Yeah, so if these...
So this is the brass tacks that the Affordable Care Act has already started to rear its effects, right? By it expiring, we are now actively seeing the find out part. We've gotten to the fuck around, right? By letting it expire, and now we're in the find out stage of the Affordable Care Act expiring. Enter this interview.
Enhanced tax credits are not extended, ACA enrollees will see their premiums increase by an average of 114%. So for viewers who haven't been in math class in a while, that means premiums are going to more than double in terms of what people pay. And that'll be an increase of over $1,000 a year on average.
Why are insurers charging so much more for health care this year? Is this the norm? Is this out of the norm?
So the amount that insurers are charging is outside of the norm. It's higher.
So that brings up another point. What is an insurer, right? Like let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What is an insurer? An insurer is an insurance company. What does an insurance company provide? Right? That's the question that we need to be asking. What does an insurance company provide? Do they provide health care? No. Do they provide access to health care? 99.99% of the time? No. Does the health insurance insurer, do they make healthcare more accessible? Also no. Do they make it more affordable? Absolutely fucking not. Do they expand healthcare programs? No. Do they encourage healthcare funding? No. Investment? No. Do they encourage the health care industry growing? No. Do they spend a majority of their profits on supporting the people who are paying for it? Also no. And we can come up with a 10th point that they don't do, right? The point is, insurance for health is a middleman scenario. A social service that every living, breathing human being will need at some point in their life is being middlemaned in order to gain access to it. So health insurance companies charge premiums for profit to be middlemen to you and whatever healthcare you need. That includes dental, vision, mental health, and regular physical health, right? And the fact that vision, dental, physical health, and mental health are all 4 separate different health insurances or cares in general is thanks to health insurance, okay? So when we're talking about insurers increasing their premiums and whether that's normal or not, the fact that they exist is not normal, because they exist to extract money from you in search of healthcare. There is no other definition, there is no other explanation, there is no other feature of health insurance other than to stand between you and healthcare. Because healthcare, i.e. the hospitals, the doctors, the dentists, the surgeons, the psychiatrists, the optometrists, and even the pharmaceuticals and the medicine and all of that, right? All of that is already paid for by Medicare. The federal budget that spends money on healthcare is Medicare. That is the line item. Medicare and technically and Medicaid. Those are the things that pay for healthcare in the United States of America to the tune of trillions of dollars, right? $3 trillion is getting cutted from Medicare in the big beautiful bill, and the federal annual budget is like 1.4 trillion or something like that. And that operating cost is the foundation of healthcare in the United States of America. Meaning, without that money, the hospitals wouldn't operate. Also, if it wasn't for that money, hospitals wouldn't be able to charge a multiplier for their services based on that money. What does that mean? Well, that means hospitals get collectively that $1.5 trillion a year from Medicare, and then they charge some factor of that $1.5 trillion in addition to profit off of, and then pay administration and all this other nonsense, right? But fundamentally, with the health insurance and with our federal taxes, right? Federal taxes already covers the health care. Health insurance extracts more money from you and me when we need the health care that taxes are already paying for. So, I'm trying to get better on my tangents, so that might have been too much of a tangent.
Higher than it's been in recent years. As you said, the average increase in what insurers are charging is 26%, and that's been the biggest increase in recent years. So it's a number of factors. One is just the cost of healthcare is going up. Hospital prices are going up, like the prices of so many things. GLP-1 drugs for weight loss, many more people are using them. That's increasing costs. New drugs are coming on the market. So that's kind of increasing healthcare costs across the board. But there's one thing in particular that's happening.
So all those things he just discussed, that the drugs are going up, the hospital expenses are going up, that everything is going up, and that's allegedly 26%. Again, for-profit pharmaceuticals, for-profit medical industry, like the implement industries, right? Everything is for-profit, and with for-profit entities, the idea behind for-profit business models, regardless, is bigger number every single quarter. And the only way to get as bigger number every single quarter is by charging more or cutting costs and expenses elsewhere. And they typically do both. Meaning you get lesser quality and more expensive products over time. Which brings us to our crumbling healthcare system, where we are significantly, severely understaffed, and our hospitals are not up to date with the latest and greatest technology.
In the Affordable Care Act marketplace, which is if these enhanced tax credits expire, millions of people are expected to drop their coverage. And most likely the people who drop their coverage will be people who are healthier than average. So that will leave a sicker pool of people for insurers to cover, and that's driving premiums up.
That's kind of a worst case scenario.
Yeah, but how do you even arbitrarily determine that sick people are the ones that are going to continue paying for health insurance? Because at that point, everybody should just give up the health insurance premiums and let the whole thing crash, which that would be a thought. There's one way to reform our healthcare overnight, and that's if all of us stop buying health insurance right now. Granted, I am extremely fortunate, and all of you veterans out there are extremely fortunate. We get the VA for most of our stuff except for dental unless you're retired. But other than that, we get free healthcare for life. Everybody else has to pay for it, right? But we could all collectively just refuse to pay for health insurance and then force hospitals to make things affordable, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's the middlemen that are causing the problems here. And hospitals are partnering with health insurers so that when they charge $300,000 for cancer treatment, if you have health insurance, it only costs you $30,000 because technically that's all it costs the hospital is $30,000 plus the $30,000 that the health insurance is going to pay. All right. So it's $60,000 at the end of the day, meaning the hospital is charging you a factor of 5 than what it already costs, except they're already charging you a factor of whatever over what you already paid into with Medicare. And I cannot stress that enough, although it sounds like I'm jumping back and forth. Your tax dollars already pay for universal health care. They already pay for that. You already have universal health care bought and paid for. The difference is your government is not honoring that and is instead allowing hospitals, allowing administrations, and allowing health insurance companies to rake you over the coals, despite having a fully funded universal health care program. I think I saw Anna say something here. I don't think the voters of New York City take too kindly to being threatened by Trump on how they vote. True. Apparently, New York City is the most liberal place in America, which I didn't know that. And Elon Musk endorsing Cuomo is a kiss of death in New York City, which is even funnier.
What if the tax credits are extended? Will things still change?
So if the tax credits are extended, what people will pay out of their own pockets will stay largely the same. The premiums are based on your income. So the lower your income, the less you pay. The higher your income, the more you pay. And if those enhanced tax credits are extended, that will remain in place. Now, of course, that will cost the government more, over $30 billion more per year.
Dude, why are you even bringing that up? Secondly, this is the propaganda of healthcare in America. It's going to cost the government $30 billion more if premiums go up. But you're not going to talk about how Medicare is the foundation funding for all healthcare in America in the first place. And we don't even need to play games with it. That's what truly infuriates me about people like this guy. Well, I guess he's right here, but on my screen, he's right there. This guy is making it sound like it's a burden on the taxpayer or on the federal government for these insurance premiums going up, which arguably it is, but he doesn't at all discuss the context in which that Medicare is already funding healthcare in this country, and that increasing premiums that we are supposed to subsidize is literally filtering tax dollars into private hands. And that's not being brought up anywhere under the sun.
But it'll save people a lot. And as I said, if those enhanced tax credits are not extended, people's premiums will end up doubling on average.
How many people are we talking about if the costs go up, if they get higher? How many people across the country?
So 24 million people across the country who get their insurance through these ACA marketplaces. These are people who are not covered by Medicare, not covered by Medicaid, don't have insurance through their employer. 22 million of those 24 million get these tax credits that help them pay their premiums. So 22 million people would be hit with these out-of-pocket premium increases. You know, it's a minority of the public, but it's people who are particularly vulnerable. These are
22 million people is a minority. In the workforce, there's 155 million. Actually, I keep saying that 155, but I'm sure that's changed. U.S. workforce total. 170 million. 22 million is still over 10% of the entire workforce. I think that's roughly 15%. Let's see. 170 divided by 22. Well, 22 divided by 170. Let's try that. Is 13%. Sorry, I overestimated that. Still, 13% of the working population is going to be dramatically impacted by these subsidies going away. And we're just like, oh, it's just a minority. Again, the lack of empathy and the lack of, just straight up humanity in these discussions should literally be that light bulb, that bell ringing, the red flags just glaring all over the place. How can you talk about 22 million people who already struggle to pay healthcare or for healthcare in the first place, in spite of the fact that it's already fully funded by federal tax dollars, as a minority that's negligible? That's disturbing.
Many of them are small business owners or work for small businesses. That's about half of them. Small businesses typically don't provide health benefits to their workers. It's also, gig workers, Uber drivers, DoorDash deliverers.
So the most
and ranchers
vulnerable workers
rely on this coverage in particular because they're not working for an employer.
Could people end up losing all of their health care as a result of all of this?
They certainly could. I mean, the Congressional Budget Office, which is kind of the budget referee in Congress, estimates that nearly 4 million people would end up uninsured if these enhanced tax credits aren't extended. So those are people who will have no health insurance whatsoever. Now, they may be healthier than average, but things happen to them. They get sick, they get in an accident, they end up in the emergency room, and that will have ripple effects throughout the healthcare system.
Okay, real quick here. One more thing here, sir. Why would healthier people just drop out of that marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, if you're sick and you have substantial medical bills, you're going to find a way to pay that premium. You'll cut back on other things. You'll put bills on your credit card. You'll dip into savings. You'll figure out a way to keep that health insurance. If you're currently healthy, you're more likely to roll the dice. You're going to make sure you pay your rent, your food bills, your utility bills, and health insurance may be kind of lower on your priority list.
Especially.
So this entire interview just actually became more and more dystopian the longer it went on. So, if the subsidies go away, 4 million people outright losing their insurance. 22 million people are not going to be able to afford it, and generally, it's going to suck for America. Secondly, the reason why people are picking and choosing between healthcare is because it is such a massive expense that it challenges other major expenses like a car payment, utilities, groceries, or rent. Again, the fact that healthcare is something that we are paying out of pocket for twice, once in taxes and once for profit, and then it is such a substantial amount of money out of our pockets that we can't even cover our cost of living, is indicative of a failed system, of a system that needs to be overhauled and changed. So I hope the main takeaway from this video and this discussion is that our healthcare system is broken. It doesn't need to be broken, and healthcare should not be a for-profit industry, and it doesn't have to be because we already pay for it in full in our federal tax dollars. So, with that being said, we'll probably cover health insurance again towards the end of the stream, just so that as people come in, they can see that we're talking about interesting stuff and not just, you know, the nitty-gritty. So, we'll start with Nancy Pelosi.
I have said I won't do anything until after
retired.
Proposition 50. So tomorrow night will be very fraught with meaning for all of us. I want to win big. I think we can win big. And I don't want to be spending time on whatever I might be doing. I want to spend my time on what we're doing, working together to get out the vote. Own the ground. You win the election by owning the ground. And you can have all the persuasion in the world. You can have the biggest numbers in the polls. But if you don't own the ground, you're only having a conversation. You're not having a victory. I have said I won't do anything until after Proposition 50. So tomorrow night will be very fraught with meaning for all of us.
I thought you said I won't retire unless I win my re-election, but Proposition 50. I don't know what Proposition 50 is. It's obviously something to do with California. So if it doesn't work for her, I guess Nancy Pelosi will finally retire and open the door for, I don't know, somebody from this millennium to actually run for office. So, that's great news. Let's do less good news.
Jailed for a meme. Tonight, a Middle Tennessee sheriff defends the arrest of a man for posting this online meme, quoting President Trump. Good evening. I'm Rory Johnston.
And I'm Carrie.
So, let's recap the first 13 seconds of this video. A man got arrested for posting this. We have to get over it. Donald Trump on the Perry High School mass shooting one day after. And this is what he posted. He posted the quote from Trump himself on a picture on Facebook. Presumably, that looks like it was a Facebook post. And then got arrested for it. So, if you post memes that are contextually against Der Führer in Tennessee, whichever city in Tennessee this is, it may very well be grounds for you getting arrested, which is absolutely batshit insane.
Sharp free speech advocates are sounding the alarm about this man's arrest. But in an interview, Perry County Sheriff Nick Weems claims this man left him no choice.
The sheriff sat down to answer some tough questions from News Channel 5 chief investigative reporter Phil Williams.
Phil, there are a lot of people out there who are outraged over this.
That may be an understatement. Larry Bussard has been behind bars for more than a month, and right now he's not scheduled for another court appearance for more than 5 weeks. The question is...
So, he's literally rotting in prison, not experiencing a speedy trial in the slightest sense of the word, for posting a political meme, which is a guaranteed protected First Amendment right. This is batshit.
Should this case ever have gone this far?
No.
Yeah, there's been some very, very bad phone calls that my employees has had to endure. Our dispatch has had to endure.
For Perry County Sheriff Nick Weems and his office, the last few weeks have been rough as word has spread about their arrest of 61-year-old Larry Bussard for a Facebook post. A local judge set Bussard's bond at $2 million.
How does the story keep getting worse? A $2 million bond for a Facebook post.
He's been here for 35 days.
35 days over a meme.
Well, it was a series of posts, but yes, the one post that he made was the one with Donald Trump that got everybody's attention and was considered threatening.
Yeah, I'll let him. Okay. Thank you.
Local police took Bussard into custody at his home in Lexington, Tennessee on September 21st based on a warrant issued out of Perry County.
So, he was posting shit on Trump on Facebook over the course of however many days or weeks, and that made it to the prosecutor's office, who then took it to the judge, who then actually issued an arrest warrant for exercising his First Amendment rights on a social media platform. Am I understanding this correctly?
The one-time cop is one of those rare liberals in rural Middle Tennessee and a keyboard warrior known for posting progressive memes like these.
This isn't even progressive memes. These are tame compared to the things I post on a regular basis. So what? Is this the epicenter? Is this ground zero for testing whether or not society will allow this to happen? Will allow the criminalization of satire? Will allow the criminalization of dissent? Because that's what this is dissent and satire. And Perry County, Tennessee is apparently ground zero for testing that legal water. That's insane.
This is what they charge you with. Okay. Threatening mass violence at a school.
At a school?
It's referring to a school. I have no idea. That's what they've called us for.
Because, are you shitting me? They're going to claim that first meme, what's the 203? I'm going to write that down because I might forget here. 203. Okay. They're going to claim that this post, we have to get over it, Donald Trump on the Perry School mass shooting one day after, this seems relevant today. They're going to claim that somehow is threatening violence against a school. And apparently a dipshit, racist, Republican, conservative judge in Perry County, Tennessee was like, yep, that's a threat against our children. Our criminal justice system is a fucking joke. An absolute fucking joke. And quite frankly, we're going to have to pay really goddamn close attention to this court case, because if this county finds this man guilty of threatening schools with that post, we're fucked. Goodbye free speech, because the precedent will have been set. Now, sure, he might be able to appeal it and might get overturned, but appeals take even longer and are even more expensive and ridiculous. So, if this is the fact that it didn't immediately get dismissed and thrown out, or that his lawyers aren't able to get it dismissed and thrown out, is truly terrifying. And it's also mystifying. Our criminal justice system is geriatric just as much as our Congress, just as much as every other element of government in this country. It's all boomers and thereabouts that are in these positions. They don't understand internet culture or meme humor, or the fact that this had nothing to do with a threat, but was literally pointing out a quote that the president himself made. And I'm assuming there was a school shooting at around that time, which is even more depressing, considering I don't even know which school shooting they're talking about because they happen so damn often. I'm surprised we didn't cover this 30 days ago when the man got arrested in the first place, because this is one of the most concerning attacks on freedom that we have seen to date during this administration. So it was 203, right?
Called us for, and I ain't got a clue.
I play on Facebook. I threaten no one. I know you don't give a damn.
This is the meme that landed Bussard in jail. He posted it as part of a discussion about Charlie Kirk's murder. The meme quotes Donald Trump saying, "We have to get over it." It was exactly what the president said the day after a deadly school shooting in Perry, Iowa. That's the meme that he posted, correct?
Yeah,
that looks like it, except this part was blurred out, the face.
Where is the threat in there, Sheriff?
Right here?
Sheriff Weems says some in his community took the reference in the Trump meme to Perry High School to be a threat to shoot up Perry County High School, which had recently had to deal with a threat from a student.
What kind of illogical leap is that? First of all, the sheriff seems barely goddamn literate. Let's be very fucking clear. And you know what? It's not a problem if you are illiterate. I have nothing against you. But if you're going to now use your position of power and authority against someone because you don't have reading comprehension skills and you're also an elected official, like, that's a fucking problem. Basic literacy for an official position, I think we can all agree should exist. That being said, the stretch, the leap of logic that they are trying to make, that this was somehow a threat just because it happened to be a quote, again, from the fucking president, that it's somehow threatening the school and therefore a crime? I can't even with that shit. That is absolutely insane.
Whenever you come to a Perry County page, okay, that is set up to let people know what's going on in Perry County, and you post this talking about Perry High School shooting.
It doesn't say Perry County High School.
It says Perry High School mass shooting one day after, okay? That led people to believe in our county that he's talking about Perry County High School, because it doesn't say Iowa either.
But you also knew this was an existing meme that was already out there on the internet.
Correct.
And so it's clear he's not talking about Perry County High School.
We knew. The public did not know.
No one even replied to that one meme, the meme that's in question here.
No one said this is a threat against our school.
No one even mentioned it.
Chris Ergel from South Carolina heard about Bussard's arrest and started a Justice for Larry Bussard page on Facebook.
A reasonable person cannot possibly interpret that as a threat. So I'm not sure what he's reacting to. I think it might be his own feelings.
So why not?
We are literally living through idiocracy. We are living in idiocracy. I mean, there is no other argument that can be made. And the fact that this sheriff is doubling and tripling and quadrupling down, and that there was a judge and a prosecutor's office that backed him on this, absolutely insane. The only thing that I can think of is, beyond the actual ignorance, is that this was a targeted attack against the Perry's activism on social media, because in the beginning of this interview it said that he was a very popular or well-known in that area for posting political memes, and this sheriff was like, I ain't standing for it, and here is a ludicrous leap of logic that is going to allow me to hem you up, because I also know I can convince this judge and this prosecutor's office in this podunk town in Tennessee to go after this guy, because we're Republican and conservative in Perry, Tennessee, and we ain't gonna deal with any of that there liberal nonsense. I have no words for the stupidity that is occurring in this.
Just inform the public that this was not about Perry County High School.
Because here's the thing, whenever you're dealing with something like this and you've got multiple people that is now scared to send their kids to school, we tried to take a different approach and go and speak to this guy and say, hey, look, this is what you're doing.
Thanks, but it's just, freedom of speech, you know?
As Busshurt's wife explained to police, he saw nothing wrong with what he had done.
That's because there wasn't anything.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you did or did not commit a crime.
I may have been an but I'm...
That's not illegal.
All of this could have been avoided, the sheriff says, if Busshurt had just deleted the meme that people in Perry County had found so objectionable.
Whenever...
Was that brought to his attention at all? And again, that meme had 0 comments or interact. Oh my God. I'm just going to keep repeating it. This is a clear-cut effort to criminalize dissent. That's all this is. And this illiterate piece of trash is somehow being the poster child for fighting and criminalizing dissent. Make no mistake, if this poor bastard goes to prison and is found guilty, the Trump administration is going to make it a national story and is going to use that as justification to go after every motherfucker that goes against him. Myself included, yourself included. I don't know what I was expecting with this title, but a clear and present danger and threat to the First Amendment was not it. I was under the impression liberal activist was somebody literally like me, like you, who was at a protest and was saying, fuck ICE, guillotine the rich, something like that. You know, posting a guillotine with Trump's head in it or something. I thought maybe something that was violent and aggressive to that degree. Okay. Still free speech, but okay. Considering, you know, conservatives on Fox News were bragging about having, like, mannequins that looked like Obama being lynched in their yards and being brought on Fox News to show and brag about those displays. If that wasn't a clear and present danger or threat against the sitting president, then of all things, that meme, which was a quote from Trump that he knew was a quote from Trump, had nothing to do with the fear that the population... You know, in Discovery, that's going to have to come out, right? He's going to have to provide the police reports. And even if he manages to fake a few, like, you would need hundreds or thousands of these reports to justify a public, like, fear. So, again, this trial, I guess we're going to have to pay attention. Wow. Wow. Did Zoran win yet? We haven't covered that yet. Anna, can you find a live of the polling results and add it to the list? Or actually just send it in chat. And then we can have it in one of these tabs. All right, let's
Truly,
see what this
I
country
say
singer
unto you,
does now, I guess.
whoever welcomes
Holy
one
shit.
of these little ones in my name might be letting in a murderer or a drug. Let's get her to a detention center.
Yeah, unfortunately, that viral GOP Jesus sketch from 6 years ago looks more like prophecy than satire today. But fortunately, today, those same hateful MAGA Christians got one hell of a mouthful from an unlikely source.
I gotta sit here and listen to you all call yourselves Christians? Bullshit! You don't get to call yourself a Christian and then advocate and fucking laugh when families are torn apart outside of courthouses of people trying to come here the right ways.
Now, I say unlikely because that is country star Brian Andrews, who went mega viral for this video he posted titled Crash Out, where he did, in fact, crash out on Christian maggots specifically for their support of what he rightly notes are very unchristian practices from ICE and the Trump regime. And
you know what? You couldn't find the original viral video, though? That's surprising. You would think the viral video would be easier to find than this guy talking about it. 'Cause... yeah. So, here's the thing. When you have a platform, especially a large platform like a published country singer, right? Like a national star. That is exactly the right time to use your platform to speak out and up against injustice, corruption, cruelty, what have you. So Brian Andrews crashing out about hypocrites and the injustices of Trump's ICE is 100% laudable. 100% laudable. And I wish we could see a lot more of it.
His outrage is incredibly cathartic and heartfelt here, but it's made infinitely better by how he trolls the typical God, country, and bear but never queer folk at the end. I'll start by playing the full mega viral crash. Andrews here headspin.
And I'm just crashing out. You want to crash out? Fine. I'll fucking give you one. If we don't wake the fuck up soon, and I mean quick, fast, and in a fucking hurry, we are fucked like a football bat. We got the Department of Homeland fucking Security out here sharing hype videos of ICE agents flying in on American cities, banging in doors, jacking people out of their houses, zip tying them in the streets naked, and then carting them off in the back of U-Hauls with no warrants or due process like it's a fucking trailer to the newest Call of Duty game. And the worst part is, I gotta watch some of y'all cheer it on like you're watching a fucking football game. And then the cherry on top of it all, I gotta sit here and listen to y'all call yourselves Christians? Bullshit. You don't get to call yourself a Christian and then advocate and fucking laugh when families are torn apart outside of courthouses of people trying to come here the right ways. You don't get to call yourself a Christian and then think it's okay that the highest court in the fucking land just gave a green light to ICE agents to be able to fucking target people because they are brown or speaking Spanish. It makes me sick to my fucking stomach that I gotta be lumped in with you when people think of Christians in this country. It makes me feel physically fucking ill to know that when people think of the loving Christ that I know that gave his life for us, they will think of you instead. You are not Christian. You use Christianity as a shield to hide behind when you need to justify the hate that you have scalded into this world. People tell me all the time, why don't you just shut the fuck up and sing, man? Keep politics out of it. Don't you think I would love to? Don't you think I want to just come on the internet and show you my love songs or my breakup songs that I've been writing? But you got the same phone I got, dog. You're telling me you don't see this shit? When you're laying in bed at night and you're scrolling on your phone and you see the same videos that I see, do you not think to yourself, damn, there's got to be a better way that we can fucking do this? Have we really become this numb to treating human fucking beings like this? I started writing songs about this shit because I'm not oblivious to the platform that I have, and I recognize that my voice could go further than most. I also believe that music is one of the most powerful tools that we will ever have. I knew being a country artist I was going to get some backlash for the things that I was about to say, and I knew that I was risking my career because of it, because I'm a small artist who didn't have a big fan base to fall back on already. But I said the shit anyways with my whole fucking chest, because if you think that I'm going to sit back and watch the America that I love to my fucking core be beaten to its fucking knees without saying a word, then you got me fucked up. And the only regret that I have is not saying something sooner. I would rather my label call me the fuck up and drop me right after posting this video and have no career at all than live in a world where what is happening right now is happening and I don't say a fucking thing like most of these artists do. So if you gotta leave, I get it. But either way, I want it to be crystal fucking clear what side of history I'm on. Oh, and by the way, this shit drops at fucking midnight.
That, I think I've crashed out on stream and said more or less the same thing. I was really petty with the actual verses, right? I mean, we got them right here in the stream links. Oh, did I move them? Hold on. I must have moved them into a different set of tabs. Religious quotes tabs, right? I know I crashed out with this. I don't know that I went on that kind of a rant per se, but I know I have lost my fucking mind. about the hypocrisy of Christians, about the hypocrisy of patriots, about the hypocrisy of even our service members who swear to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, both foreign and domestic, and then go and deploy into our cities and extrajudicially murder fishermen off the coast of Venezuela and Colombia without even bothering to confirm whether or not they're even, fishermen. So I 100% get it. 100% get it. I 100% relatable. We cannot, I cannot agree with him enough, honestly. That, brava. And that was apparently the second country singer to come out like that, which is fantastic. 10 out of 10, no notes. Right, like, enough said. That's the main difference between us and them. We have humanity, they have none. And when we get angry about our humanity, we're immediately chided and derided as being unpatriotic, un-American, and un-Christian. Again, I don't understand that knee-jerk, especially how that knee-jerk ends up getting more prominence than the indignant outrage and the righteous outrage that we just saw. How many news networks, how many conservative pundits saw that video and drug him, right? How, like, NBC, CNN, and MSNBC, so on and so forth. Like, did they actually have his side? Or did they show, oh, look, another liberal / country singer who is just now deciding to be, like, I really don't get how our reporting, our journalism, our mentality, our society feeds on the negativity first and foremost, and then ignores what could very well be the speech of the century to take down fake Christians. All you need to do is have the Revelations verse. Was it like 3:15 or something? Dang it, I don't remember. Hold on. Was it chapter 13 or 3? I thought it was chapter 2. Nope, maybe it is 3. Oh, right. No, it is chapter 3, verses 4 and 15. And unto the angel of the church of the Laodiceans write, these things saith the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of the creation of God. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. Right? So then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. Because thou sayest, I am rich, and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched, and miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. As many as I love I rebuke and chasten. Be zealous therefore, and repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man may hear my voice and open the door, I will come in to him, and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame, and am set down with my Father in his throne. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. Right? That is Revelations talking about, be about it, be a Christian, follow the Christian works, quit pandering, quit lying, quit pretending to be something that you're not, and do the things. And all, like, the scripture could literally be slow scrolling as this guy is ranting, and it would be chef's kiss. New York polls close at 9, and Trump's just put out a tweet calling any Jewish person who votes for Zoran a fake Jew who supports Hamas. Yeah, but isn't that kind of like Biden saying you ain't blackjack if you don't vote for me? So, like, the racism and the complete just separation from reality, you just can't beat it in America. So, we have had a very bracing start to our stream.
As voters cast early ballots ahead of Election Day this coming Tuesday. We end today's show with the mayoral race in Minneapolis. Omar Fatah, the son of Somali immigrants, a Democratic socialist, is a leading candidate seeking to unseat incumbent mayor Jacob Fry, who's running for a third term. In 2020, Fatah made history as the first Muslim, first Somali American to be elected to Minnesota's state Senate. Fatah's surging campaign has drawn comparisons to Zoran Mamdani, the Democratic socialist, who polls indicate may be the first Muslim mayor of New York. Minneapolis Congressmember Ilhan Omar has endorsed Fatah, along with Jewish Voice for Peace Action and labor unions like SEIU. Minneapolis implemented
those groups that she kept mentioning, Anna. I would write those down as potential allies as well. So I'll backpedal it a little bit so you can hear him again.
Minneapolis Congressmember Ilhan Omar has endorsed Fatah, along with Jewish Voice for Peace Action and labor unions like SEIU.
Jewish Labor for Peace. Did I hear that correctly?
Of New York. Minneapolis Congressmember Ilhan Omar has endorsed Fatah, along with Jewish Voice for Peace Action and labor unions like SEIU.
Jewish Voice for
Minneapolis implemented ranked choice voting in 2009, which allows voters to choose up to 3 candidates in order of preference on their ballot. The winning candidate must receive at least half the vote. There are a total of 15 mayoral candidates on the ballot, with 4 Democrats, including the 2 frontrunners, Mayor Jacob Fry and Omar Fatah.
15 candidates on a ballot for the mayor's race. That's nuts. That is how every election should be. That is how every judgeship should be. That is how every councilship should be. How every ward and district, how every state representative, Congress, Senate, governor. Like, the fact that more people aren't running for more offices is why we have the dynasties throughout the country that we have. The reason why bipartisan politics is so dominant, it's because people never challenge the norm, the status quo. So the fact that there are 15 candidates, yeah, fine. The bottom 10 are probably not likely to have a chance in hell of winning anyway, and the top 5 is probably mostly going to be the top 2. Cool. That's the way popularity in campaigning goes. But at least people are putting their name out there, putting themselves out there, and getting people to talk about whatever that elected position is. That is awesome. And we need much more of it.
Fatah is the only top candidate who's asked voters not to rank Fry, a centrist who's faced widespread criticism over his crackdown on Black Lives Matter protesters following the police murder of George Floyd in 2020.
Of course this clown did. Look at him. I mean, he might be Latin, but I mean, he looks white to me. But he might be Latin, I don't know. But of course, a white guy immediately cracked down on protests against Black Lives Matter when a black person was murdered on live for 10 minutes straight. Of course, this piece of shit would go out of his way to condemn people's justified outrage.
Fry has received the endorsement of Minnesota Governor, failed vice presidential candidate Tim Walz.
Tim Walz, America's uncle or grandpa or whatever. What a joke. Like, what an actual joke.
State Senator and Minneapolis mayoral candidate Omar Fatah joins us now. We welcome you to Democracy Now! If you can start off by talking about what the slate is that you are a part of, for people to understand around the country this issue of ranked choice voting and what you're moving forward on now.
He is grinning. He is positively beside himself. I have never seen somebody that full of joy to be interviewed.
Major issues.
Yeah, first, thank you for having me. So we came up with the slate for change, myself, candidate Janice Hampton, and candidate Dwayne Davis, because we believe it's the best. We are the best three candidates to move our city forward. We came together around our collective vision, and yet, despite our differences, showing that Minneapolis can have a different kind of politics where if you think differently, if you have slight differences in opinion around different issues, that we shouldn't have an adversarial relationship, and that we can still be partners in doing the work for our people, for the people of Minneapolis. And so our vision includes one, or my vision includes one, in which we make Minneapolis a more affordable city, increasing the minimum wage to $20 an hour, passing rent stabilization to protect our renters so they don't get priced out.
Crazy what happens when you support and advocate for policy that benefits people. It's almost like people tend to jive with that because, hey, it's going to help them. And you're addressing their very real concerns. Stagnant wages, which have been stagnant for 30 years plus, and rent controls, which have largely never happened in this country. And clearly need to because, again, for-profit industries are devastating every single facet of our society.
It includes having a public safety system that reflects the needs of everyone. 5 years after the murder of George Floyd, the mayor doesn't have a plan or doesn't intend to have a plan. And finally, we have a hostile federal government with Trump back in office, who has the trifecta. He has both the House and the Senate and the presidency. And on top of that, he has a Supreme Court that's going to do and has been doing whatever he wants. And so as a city, we need to build a strong line of defense to protect all of our vulnerable residents.
So the things that he hasn't said, so what he gave was an elevator speech, right? So an elevator speech is your condensed version of your top 3 or 4 points in 60 seconds or less. That is what he just gave us. Now, I hope that within the next couple of minutes, he goes into detail on some more of those things like, okay, you brought the hostile federal government and that we need to protect our cities from it. Are you going to kick ICE out of your city? Are you going to kick the military out of your city? Are you going to hold Walz accountable if he tries to do those things or doesn't try to stop them? Those would be the things that, as a mayor of a major city, we need answers to.
How do you feel, Omar Fattah, about being called the Mamdani of the Midwest? And one of the issues that Zoran Mamdani raises in this New York mayoral race is the issue of big money. If you can also talk about the role of big money in your mayoral race, PACs protecting the interests of developers and funneling millions of dollars into campaigns, and your chief rival, Mayor Frey.
Yeah, what we're seeing with Zoran's campaign and campaigns across the nation is that we're seeing progressive candidates running on a sincere and authentic message around affordability and making the lives of working families better. For far too long, the Democratic Party has lost the message.
For far too long, the Democrats have lost the message. It's almost as if, you know, I said this back in 2017 on national debate stages 3 or 4 times in a row. It's crazy to me how this keeps coming up time and time and time again. Now, I get that they're not quoting me, and that's unfortunate. But that's because I didn't know how to market myself. Still, it just goes to show that populism for, of, and by the people will always win, will always succeed, will always resonate with the people because it's the people who need it and strive for it. So,
around how to improve the lives, around the costs of living, around renters that are struggling with paycheck to paycheck, struggling to make the next month's rent, struggling to pay for basic food and healthcare costs. And so this is kind of the reason why we saw a hard swing in 2024 with Trump winning the presidency and now candidates on the left or in the Democratic Party winning with a similar message around affordability. Now, was Trump lying when he was running? 100%, of course he was. But he knew that that was a message that would resonate the most with
which we've
the population.
Also said
and so
over and over
right
again.
now, what we're seeing here in Minneapolis is that Mayor Fry has 5 PACs right now. Not 1, not 2, but 5 PACs that have been well-funded, that have been sending out glossy mailers, nonstop ads on social media and on YouTube and things like that. And the reality is that if an incumbent has been doing the on-the-ground work, connecting with residents, connecting with stakeholders, working well with city council and cross-jurisdictionally across different levels of government, there wouldn't be the need to spend that much money and having 5 different PACs to defend you. It's very telling that right now that the mayor doesn't have a single county endorsement, county commissioner endorsement, or state legislator endorsement. And it's because he hasn't been able to work well with others and has handed the city off in his last 2 terms to the wealthy and the well-connected and not the working families. And so that has been evident throughout this campaign.
And I think that's pretty much that. Actually, that is pretty much the majority of it. So, outstanding. Omar Fatah, I hope you get it. I think you're absolutely correct. Leaders who cannot connect with their constituency do not deserve to be in those positions of leadership, because who are they leading? Who are they representing if not their constituents? And there could not be anything more correct to say than that. Highlighting that there are 5 PACs that are helping this guy, and again, a PAC? I'm going to try to not crash out here. A PAC is called a Political Action Committee. Now, every candidate has to have a political action committee for themselves, for their own campaign. That's how they can legally receive donations and funds for their campaign. That is the legal means, unless you're independently wealthy, of receiving donations, right? If you're independently wealthy, I guess you wouldn't need donations. But that is what that's there for. Every other PAC, though, cannot work with the candidate, right? Because of their nature, and that's the law behind how PACs work, including super PACs, that there can be no collusion between candidates and the PAC, other than, of course, the campaign PAC for the candidate. Now, having 5 means there are 4 additional ones that are working on the candidate's behalf without colluding, but typically there is some intermediary that's like, hey, this is what we're going to do. It's like, well, I didn't hear you say that, but it sounds like a great idea. And that's all the more definition of not colluding that you need. So, 4 PACs funneling in money, which, again, you don't have to show any information for, right? Other than for the actual Federal Election Committee filings, right? It's dark money, 4 different ways going towards this guy's campaign that is dramatically changing the playing field without having any sort of credibility on the ground or with the people. And that's the point that he was bringing up. It's the point that Mamdani's brought up. It's the point that most leftists bring up in elections, is that I don't need a PAC because I am working for you, and I will be working with you once I'm in office. So let's do this thing together. And that is always how it should be. So, So this is the live. I guess they're focusing on Virginia Attorney General right now. Isn't this supposed to be the New York City race? I guess not. We got the Virginia Lieutenant Governor, Hashmi and Reed. So it looks like Democrats are up in that one. New Jersey exit polls talking about various different things. Oh, crap.
People to ordinary people, that you are prepared to take on the oligarchs in New York City. They have spent millions and millions of dollars trying to defeat him. And what he is saying is that in New York, and in fact throughout the country, We need a government that represents working people, the middle class, who are having a hard time now being able to afford housing, childcare, transportation, health care. That we need a government that represents them and not the people on top.
Okay, so there's just talking still. We'll get to the Mamdani election as anything actually comes up from it. All right. So, the longest government... We're going to do the government shutdown video.
35 days into...
The government shutdown that held the previous record was the government shutdown that I was in when I was active duty in 2013 that sparked my desire, my awareness, let me rephrase, that serving my country would not be served in the military, but rather in politics. So that shutdown, 12 years later, was eclipsed by this shutdown, which is the longest government shutdown in American history.
To the government shutdown and the 42 million Americans who rely on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, known as SNAP, to help put food on the table, now unsure of where their next meal will come from. In the Bronx, Wendy Ho relies on SNAP to feed herself and her adult son who has autism.
We're not rich people. We're ordinary, everyday Americans. So we have to put everything in a budget. And if one thing goes wrong with that budget, it can knock everything out. So what are they supposed to do?
SNAP assistance running out over the weekend. The Trump
and that's the point that is so often missed when talking about the economy. If people missing even $84 a week, $100 a month, if people need even $20 a month in order to survive and make their ends meet, that is a failure of economy. That is the failure of domestic policy. If people cannot weather $20, $100, $200, hell, $1,000, if you cannot weather $1,000 not being there in any given month, that is an absolute failure of domestic policy. That is government's failure. That is Congress's failure. That is the president's failure. That is the governor's failure. That is the state legislature's failure. That's the mayor's failure. That is a failure of governance. If people are living so bootstrapped, so shoestring budget, that any amount of money would throw that out of the possibility of survival, it is a failure of policy. Well, they need to live within their means. Again, 60% of working Americans live at or below the poverty level. Living within your means isn't possible if you're living at poverty. Living within your means if you're making $60,000, okay. But here's the thing. $60,000 is already more than 60% of the country what they're making. So we're not talking about a middle-class family who makes a combined income of $80,000 or more, buying a brand new car and buying a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. We're not talking about that. We're talking about people who work 40 to 80 hours a week who still cannot survive because of the cost of living being ridiculous and wages not keeping anything close to the level of inflation or rising costs of living, that people are simply unable to keep up. And it is a majority of people who are working. And that cannot be stressed enough. I made 18 grand last year and I pay $1,000 in rent every month. I live within my means. I live off of $300 a month. And to be fair, that should never be like that. That breaks my heart. That is what you have to live with, because 18 grand is $8.65 an hour. That's minimum wage. Living off of minimum wage should not be a struggle. Minimum wage should be the minimum wage to live a comfortable life. And living off of $300 a month. That's not a fair or equitable amount of money to live on. I am not knocking your lifestyle. You are doing what you have to do to survive, but that's what you're doing. You're surviving. You're not living, and you're certainly not thriving. You are surviving, and that's a problem. It's a problem because no American should be dealing with that. Unfortunately, Steve, you're part of that 60% that I was talking about. 60% of Americans who live, and again, the federal poverty level is 32,000 or 50. They okay. I see what they did here. They really have the audacity to say that it's $15,000. Are you fucking kidding me? Okay. Still, within the poverty level. Sure. Okay. The fucking audacity of... First of all, the fact that rent is $1,000, right? That is literally a majority of your income. Right. No. 100%. People get slammed for needing food stamps or WIC or any other kind of welfare, and we are the ones government comes after the hardest. No, you're absolutely right. It's easier for the government to go after the most vulnerable than it is the wealthy because the vulnerable can't fight back. And that, no, I 100% agree with you. Right, and it was $650 6 years ago. And even $650 was probably difficult to deal with, but that was still $350 less. That would have been $350 more a month that you had to work with. And that's my point. So, no, we're on the same page. Yeah, these guidelines are absolutely insane because if you look at Columbus, Ohio rental rates, the average is $1,300 for a one-bedroom. For a two-bedroom, it's $1,600. For single families, $1,400 to $1,700. And if we go on Zillow, we will see that. $1,500 is the average rent, with the mean or the mode being somewhere between $1,200 and $1,400. $1,100 more or less. Between $1,100 and $1,600 is a majority of the rents. So Zillow rentals this must be a different thing. Okay. So Columbus, Ohio, for rent goes up to ridiculously high, right? So there are 8,630 rentals. Now, this right here says one bedroom, right? But these are subsidized housing. These are subsidized housing. This is Section 8 housing that most people aren't going to have access to. And it doesn't explain that in here, does it? Why would it? So, if you're eligible, i.e. you're making minimum wage, you might be able to find housing that is somewhat affordable. But then it immediately goes into the 970 range plus. And that's from the lowest. Oh, that was the different setting. Now it's from the lowest. So you get your subsidized housing, a studio, and then it goes up from there. And these are usually not in the best places. They're usually not the best quality. I mean, look. Oh, wait, is there not pictures? Oh, it's only the street view? Outstanding. They literally have boarded up doors and windows. Like, who wants to fucking live here? Who wants to fucking live here for $700 a month in a condemned, boarded up building, right? So, if you want to live safely and in a something remotely indicative of peace and calm and security, you're paying well into the $1,100, $1,200 or more. And that is out of the realm of possibility for most people. You could maybe flex. You said you had $300 a month to live off of. You could maybe get a slightly nicer apartment for that extra $300 and just not eat for the month ever again and just die and starve to death. Like, these are not okay things to be having in America. I was once told that I should be able to support a family of 4 with like 30,000. Yeah, wasn't that was one of these. I should have kept that. A family of 4. That's why they said it. Because right here it says 32,000, but this right here, family of 4 is 32,000. You should 100% be able to do that according to the federal government, which is absolutely insane. There is no universe where that makes sense. Where there is you'd have to be in one of the most rural places in the South to truly be able to afford that. And then good luck trying to find a job that's worth a while or get savings or do anything and pull yourself out of poverty. If you are in poverty, the ability to pull yourself out of poverty, which should always be the goal, is less and less feasible the more in poverty you are, the deeper in poverty you are, because you don't have the opportunities to find better jobs, to move, to find better opportunities, because you don't have the money to go in the first place. It is truly heartbreaking and soul-shattering to talk about poverty in America when we are giving $3 trillion in tax breaks to 903 individuals. We're giving a $3 trillion tax break to less than 1,000 people because billionaires need that money more than the 60% of Americans who are living in poverty. In my view, if you've lived in an apartment for 5 years and always paid your rent and always been good tenant, then they should have to cap your rent after those 5 years. Honestly, if you've paid your rent for 5 years and you're renting somebody else's house, that's your fucking house. You've been paying rent in the same location for 5 years, paying their mortgage and profit on top of that? That's your house, buddy. I'm sorry. But of course, I am vehemently against landlords existing in the first place. So, and that's part of my policies. This is the issue we really need to be pushing, but not just at Trump, but every member of Congress already. Our kids are starving while our leaders in D.C. feast. No, I 100% agree with you. The more often and the harder we can push back against our uncaring leadership, the better. Because these are the things that they need to be made aware of. And these are the things that they need to be held accountable for. And if they're not going to represent the most vulnerable of their constituency, then they don't need to be in office. Because your job, as any elected position, is to serve those with the least, to make their lives better. Because by making their lives better, you definitively make everybody's life better. So if you can raise the poverty rate from 15,000 to 45,000, or I guess said differently, let me rephrase. If you can make the average income of that 60% go from 15,000 to 45,000, you will have done the most outstanding job that you can. Because raising the poverty rate to 45,000 could dramatically imply that cost of living became 45,000. So I misspoke, but as a leader, the main takeaway, the point that I'm trying to make here, that as a leader, if you can do for the least of the people that you serve, then you will do for the most. I was trying to quote that Bible verse. That which you do unto the least of thee, you do unto me. Right? So that didn't work out well either. I'm rambling, so I'm going to finish the thought and move right back to the video. If you are an elected official, your job is to ensure that the people that are suffering the most end up suffering the least. And by doing so, you will serve the needs of the many directly, rather than just catering to the few and the wealthy who don't need it to begin with.
Administration now saying in response to a federal judge's order that it will tap into roughly $4.5 billion to partially fund SNAP. But that's only enough to cover roughly half of the program for this month. And the administration warns it will take a few weeks up to several months to get those payments out. Simone Wilkes, a single mom, has been in limbo. Last week telling us she's already skipping meals to feed her 2 young boys.
It has been days where the kids will eat and I'll just survive off water.
R.J. O'Brien speaking with Simone now that
$4.5 billion is something that Elon Musk could write out of his own personal checkbook. $4.5 billion is something that Amazon could write out of their own personal checkbook. $4.5 billion compared to the GDP of the United States of America, compared to the federal budget, is literally a drop in the bucket. And it's a billionaire that refuses to pay for the benefit that we've already paid into with our tax dollars, and is then claiming that it might take weeks or months before that money to disperse, which will only cause that much more harm across those weeks and months. The cruelty, the violence, the only explanation is that it is the whole point. And it is absolutely disgusting.
Benefits have run dry, asking how much she has left.
$23.
You have $23.
Yeah. No, I do not know what I'm going to do.
In Maryland, Governor Wes Moore announcing $62 million to help fully cover November SNAP benefits, saying in a post on social media, "In the face of this cruel government shutdown, we're taking another significant step to protect Maryland families and children."
And Robin, you mentioned it. This is now tied for the longest government shutdown in history. The last one, which lasted 35 days, was also under the Trump administration during his first term, guys.
All right.
Oh, so I guess it wasn't the one that I was in. And I don't remember the government shutdown during his first term. Am I living in a twilight zone? Government shutdown during first Trump admin. 2018. Over expanding barriers on the U.S.-Mexico border. $16 days. Okay. I was under the impression that that was the second longest. Apparently not. Oh, and there's a whole Wikipedia page for government shutdowns in the United States of America. Wowza. Is there like a list of them? There is. 2013, 2018 in January, and then I guess again in 2018. And then 2025. Yeah, look. Notably, the list of federal shutdowns began in 1980. In 1981. Under or since the Reagan administration. Which is crazy. There was a one-day government shutdown under the Jimmy Carter administration. Several different single-digit shutdowns during Reagan. That's... And then Clinton had a long one. Obama had a fairly long one. And then it's just been... This is... We've only started having these problems in the past 45 years. I do not understand. I do not understand this at all. Like, I would have thought maybe that the government shutdown would have been a thing that happens throughout our history, but no, only since around the Reagan administration. Go fucking figure. Let's see, that hasn't changed in decades. I've been seeing those numbers since the early 2000s. Right, because the federal minimum wage hasn't changed since the early 2000s. And that's why that number hasn't changed, because the minimum wage is the poverty line. So I think it's... Oh, I just pressed the wrong button. That might screw up our thing. Son of a bitch. Yeah. So that, I just wanted to make sure before I said it. So $15,650 divided by 2080 is $7.52, which would be a touch above the federal minimum wage, right? So federal minimum wage is $7.20. Oh. So the minimum wage is $7.25, and it is ever so slightly higher to be considered at the precipice of poverty. So that extra quarter an hour could make or break you being considered in poverty. That is batshit insane. That is absolutely batshit insane. But we'll put that in this here as well. So it looks like Spanberger won the New Jersey governorship. Oh, too early to call. But she's the projected winner. I see. Okay, so there is that, I guess. More to come, I suppose. Is this specifically about Mamdani? Nope, I think they're also just jumping between different things. Oh, and the New Jersey gubernatorial race. Here's the New York City specific team. But that's some poor quality video. Well, I'm sure we'll get to it as more information comes out. But the New York City polls don't close until 9 p.m. Right. No, so we've still got 22 minutes.
On Friday, President Trump held a lavish Great Gatsby Halloween party at Mar-a-Lago just hours before the estimated 42 million people lost SNAP benefits. Democratic Senator
evil.
Chris Murphy wrote on social media, "The way he rubs his inhumanity in Americans' face never ceases to stun me. He's illegally refusing to pay food stamp benefits while he throws a ridiculously over-the-top Gatsby party for his right-wing millionaire and corporate friends," unquote. And a piece for the Financial Times headlined "How Gatsby Foretold Trump's America." The University of London literature professor...
Yeah, and also talk about missing the entire point. Great Gatsby is critical of the Gilded Age of America, and here he is throwing an actual Gatsby party, which is the very, very example of the criticism that was being made in The Great Gatsby. This is like you paying for a new car in advance in full and not being able to drive it off the lot because the lot is shut down. No, man, there are so many good analogies. That's a good one. I actually like that. So the government shutdown is like you buying a car in advance and not being able to drive it home because the lot got shut down. I'm going to put that one straight in my pocket.
Sarah Churchwell writes, quote, "The novel's prescience lies not in foretelling specific events, but in diagnosing a culture where power enjoys impunity and cruelty rubs out its traces. A society run by careless people, the unheeding brutality of so-called world builders has returned most recently in the dark fantasies of Trumpism and in Silicon Valley's fatuous motto, move fast and break things," she wrote.
I mean, that's a really good quote. And it was a writer who wrote that. It's very eloquent. I don't know that I could have said that eloquently, that melodiously.
For more, we go to Montgomery, Alabama, where we're joined by Kirk Kernot, professor and chair of the English department at Troy University. Montgomery is where Zelda Fitzgerald was born. The professor teaches F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby, served on the board of the Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald Museum in Montgomery, now executive director of the International F. Scott Fitzgerald Society. We thank you so much for being with us. Professor Kirk Kernot, as you saw this party play out in Mar-a-Lago, as millions could literally move into hunger in America, your thoughts? What did The Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald, teach us about the times then, and perhaps a warning about the times today?
Well, I think it's fair to say that those of us who have spent our careers studying F. Scott Fitzgerald were horrified and sort of felt like, Mr. President, you've ruined so much already. Why must you sully The Great Gatsby? It's really horrific optics, and it really perpetuates, I think, a misreading of The Great Gatsby that troubles many of us. Gatsby is sort of famous for its lavish party scenes, but I think what people often miss is that the entire thrust of the book is to critique that conspicuous consumption.
Hey, I'm not even a professor at Montgomery who studies and excels at F. Scott Fitzgerald in the first place, and I said that. See, I did pay attention in English class. I don't remember which class, what grade that was, but the only English teacher whose name I remember is Mrs. Elick, so eat your heart out, Mrs. Elick. I did pay attention to The Great Gatsby.
And the wastage that goes on in these sorts of events where all of our values are becoming more and more tenuous.
So we're going to let that be. It's not a very long video. Yeah, but that's pretty much all that needs to be said. It goes, it's like, we're going to don't build that machine from the book. Don't build this machine because it's a terrible idea. Author of other notable works, Leopards Eat Your Faces, so don't go near them, right? It's that kind of nonsense. Like, this administration is literally taking the historical actions of so many leaders, so many authors, so many works, and saying, you know what? I did not understand that these were satires and criticisms of society, and we're going to go ahead and do that. So,
we are continuing to follow some breaking news, and that is President Trump making a statement on social media right here, talking about SNAP. This just posted to Truth Social right here. SNAP benefits, which increased by billions and billions of dollars.
Okay, we're not going to read all that, or we're not going to listen to that. But again, SNAP benefits, which increased by billions of dollars, which is a good thing. A social program being expanded is always a good thing. Will be given only when the shutdown is over. So, again, it's a court order. He has no choice but to give the money. But it just goes to show that he doesn't care about the law. He doesn't care about the Constitution. He cares about his own wants and his own desires at the expense of literally 42 plus million Americans who will be directly suffering because of his arrogance, his narcissism, and his cruelty. So, I guess my Oval Office is blocking that. But to the point, right? Speaking of,
my next guest is Trista Ball. Her 2-year-old son participates in the Scioto County Head Start program in Ohio. Thanks so much, Trista, for being here.
Oh, Ohio.
I'm hoping you can just talk a little bit about how much your son Joey relies on this program, what it means for you, what is the state of play right now?
So Joey started back in early of June this year, and before starting, he had a severe speech delay. He wasn't hitting milestones that he was supposed to be hitting at his age. And just from the first few months that he was there, he started, talking more and hitting more milestones just from the help of his teachers. And honestly, throughout this shutdown, for the school, today's the first full week that we'll have been in a shutdown. I'm very scared about the delays that could happen. Joey loves his teacher so much, and our family as a whole love that school so much for helping us out as much as they can.
And right now, the program is not suspended. I mean, what are you doing for childcare? How are you working through that?
So I work full-time during the day. I'm a hairstylist, actually just across the street from Joey's school, which is also very helpful for when he was in school. But his dad watches him during the day, which is starting to become really hard because we had to go through this before with another daycare. He works from like 9 p.m. until 6 in the morning, and then he watches Joey all day, which is, not good, I feel like, for either of them. Like, it's hard, and we have to rely on other family members and their time off to help watch him in order to keep an income coming into the house to help provide.
This should never be, right? Like, this situation should never be. Head Start, again, is a government-subsidized childcare type program. And that's exactly what we need in a country where either single parents need to work for the obvious reasons, or when both parents need to work to cover costs of living. But that in itself is an indictment on our economy when one income is not enough, let alone to raise a family, let alone to support yourself and another. One income should be enough to raise a family, and it was for 50 years, until it suddenly wasn't, and it never became enough again. And that's the problem. That is the entire problem. And the fact that the solution to this problem that this administration is choosing to explore is making it harder for people to survive and go to work and provide for themselves or their family is going to cause both short-term and long-term harm. And the repercussions are scarcely able to be understood. We cannot even fathom how much damage this will cause for 10, 15, 20, 50 years down the road. Because even if during the first 100 days of my administration, I immediately turn all this shit around and start supporting people left, right, and center, how much infrastructure will we have lost in that time? How many professionals will we have lost in that time? How many people will have literally died, starved to death? How many children would have been thrown into foster care or CPS? How many families will have been destroyed? How will the job market have completely changed? And how will it need to be revitalized from then to now? There are so many variables that we cannot even take into account, because it's going to require the suffering and pain to hit at the level that it's going to hit for us to even know what it will take to recover from. And whether or not he wants to be in the White House for 3, 4, 5 terms until he dies, even if it wasn't about or even if he wants to do all of that nonsense, the long-term ramifications of a gilded age of America is going to be the Great Depression. The Roaring Twenties led directly to the Great Depression, which only got out because of World War II. So if the plan is Gilded Age, Roaring Twenties, until the Great Depression of 2030, to then take us out into World War III, which is more than likely going to be a nuclear holocaust, then we're cooked, as the kids say. If the plan is to just consolidate power and whatever else, we're still cooked because of the aforementioned Gilded Age and Great Depression. This does not have long-term sustainability. There's no investment in people. There's no investment in jobs. There's no investment in wages. There's no investment in the sustainability of our country, let alone our future. So the only reasoning for this would be to destabilize our economy, destabilize our workforce, to consolidate power and wealth into smaller and smaller hands, to control and manipulate the populace. But again, if that's the end game, to simply control and manipulate the populace, then the end game is the collapse of the United States of America. That is the only inevitable outcome of making people struggle and suffer and struggle and suffer, is the collapse of our country. That is the only outcome. There is no growth. There is no even maintaining the status quo. If you continue to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, people will break. That's the reality. And if the goal is to then let a civil uprising happen so it can be crushed under heel to drive the 330 million Americans population down to 100 million, well, you've really fucked yourself at that point, because then the current workforce of 155 million that we have is in of itself going to be reduced proportionately down to 100 million and probably even less. So what? The 1% of the 100 million, the top 1 million people, are going to be in charge of the remaining 99? And we're going to be doing what? There's going to be a loss of at least 55 million jobs. And presumably 56, because that 1%, they're not going to do those jobs, right? So 100 million jobs, and that's the whole population of America. So that's not even the working class, which is, I think, 60% of the population on average. So you're going to take 155 million jobs and reduce that down to 60 million and still somehow maintain the economic output of today? That's not going to happen. That is delusional. That isn't even... That's not even remotely in the realm of possibility. That is, if 230 million people died and that didn't result in the remaining 100 million people overthrowing the country in violent, bloody revolution, if that, or, prior to the 230 million people dying, I'm just saying, if none of that resulted in a violent revolution, it's because the economy and the infrastructure of the United States collapsed too fast for the violent revolution to occur, which then caused ripple effects of people dying. Absolutely insane. Trump hates socialism so much, he's starting to cut all social programs, except for the ones that benefit himself and his fellow billionaires. I see a glimmer of hope. These are first big elections since Trump took office, which is true. And it does seem like halfway decent people are at least polling well. I don't know about the governor of New Jersey. She's a Democrat, but I don't necessarily know if she's a good person. But just because she's a Democrat doesn't necessarily mean she gives a damn about people, because Democrats have apparently not given a damn about people since 2017, if not sooner. Or earlier, I mean. Cuomo couldn't even just appreciate that New York City was done with him. All he did was take votes away from the Republican guy. Yeah, no, which is kind of funny that a endorsed person that ran in the Democratic primary is actually splitting the vote with a Republican and got a Republican president to endorse him as somehow a badge of honor on top of that. That's just nuts.
huge impact on air travel. Shortage of air traffic controllers across the country and TSA agents. Transportation correspondent Gio Benitez is at LaGuardia Airport. Good morning, Gio.
Hey, George, good morning. Yeah, it's been a mess day after day. It's actually quiet right now, but that's usually how it is in the morning, and then that's when the troubles begin. Take a look at this video now from Houston. So these are the TSA lines. Officials there warning of a third day of long lines just to get past security. The nation's 60,000 TSA officers are also working without pay. They are calling out sick in droves. We're talking about waiting in line for up to 75 minutes at Bush Airport, a half an hour at Hobby Airport. And again, that is just to get through security. This after 2 straight days of more than 3-hour waits. And unfortunately,
mind you, TSA and security checks were supposed to be temporary provisions of the Patriot Act during the global war on terror as a response to 9/11. And now it's the standard process, but during the government shutdown, with TSA agents not being paid and then not coming to work, mind you, the TSA agents aren't making big money anyway, is between $46,000 and $55,000 a year, which is, as we saw, barely above what's literally the poverty line, like the actual poverty line. Sure, fine, the federal government can say it's $15,000, but if you're making $45,000 or even $55,000 a year in this economy, you're fucking struggling. So anyway, we keep fucking around and we keep finding out that government programs and government funding impacts a significant part of our lives on a regular day-to-day basis. It affects the food that we can eat, the cost of that food, our housing, the cost of that housing, the ability for us to travel, literally to travel, whether for business or pleasure, the cost of that travel, and then the time involved, which causes delays and delays and delays and delays. We are literally finding out in real time how much impact the federal government actually has. And what does this administration do? Throw an actual Gilded Age party, completely missing the entire point of not throwing Gilded Age parties. A book about showing that the Gilded Age was horrible to both people and society and the country. But I digress.
there is no relief once you actually get to the gate, because thousands of flights delayed yesterday as the 13,000 air traffic controllers who are also working without pay are calling out sick too. Ground stops all over the country, because if you don't have these controllers, you have to slow down the air traffic to keep the skies safe. And guys, there is no end in sight here, because we're told that the longer this shutdown goes on, the worse things will get for air travel. Guys,
and again, air travel and the air industry is not, so air traffic controllers don't just deal with passenger aircraft. They're also dealing with mail. They're dealing with packages and regular cargo, right? And this is also impacting our military troop movement. So it's affecting just people wanting to travel. So tourism. It's It's affecting tourism. It's affecting business broadly, because the majority of air travel is for business purposes. It's affecting the U.S. Postal Service, and it's affecting regular cargo as well. It's and our military. I'm sorry, that was the fifth point. It's affecting our military as well. And the longer this happens, the more harsh the ramifications will be, and the more noticeable these problems will become. Because again, if these people aren't doing their jobs, all of this comes to a screeching halt. It's why the national railroad strike was broken by a sitting president, because if we don't have freight in this country moving billions of tons of material every single day, our entire economy and manufacturing would come to a screeching halt. And it wouldn't even be funny. It wouldn't even be close. It wouldn't even be an argument. If we do not have rail going back and forth, we don't have an economy. If we don't have airlines going, we still have an economy, but it begins to flounder rapidly. And the same thing with our ports. That's where we're getting a lot of our raw materials and goods from to do the manufacturing with. If those shut down, if those aren't getting goods, and if they're not transporting materials, our economy ceases. And the longer this shutdown occurs, the longer it's going to, these things are going to be impacted and strained and start to capitulate. I wouldn't fly even if I had to. I'll take a mode of transport I have a chance of surviving a crash in. Fair enough. I think Trump did it on purpose. He loves to rub it in, and his constituents, who are the majority of SNAP participants, don't even see anything wrong with it. It's so baffling. Well, and that's the propaganda that we have to overcome. The cognitive dissonance that we have to overcome. The airlines are losing huge amounts of money. It's so bad Amazon is now funding ATC just to keep its shipments going. Right, which is part of the point that I was making, right? Like, goods movement relies on air travel, especially for next day and high turnaround deliveries. This shutdown proves beyond any reasonable doubt the states can run just fine without the federal government. We don't need them, they need us. I would say further that the purpose of federal government is to help society function, is to provide the framework for society to function. So, and I'm not arguing, like, don't take it the wrong way. Like, I'm not arguing with you, Steve, and I'm certainly not bashing you for it. I'm saying that mentality is part of what we need to overcome in the messaging, is that the shutdown proves that the federal government serves a much, much bigger and much, much more integral part of our day-to-day lives than we otherwise thought. We thought the federal government was just DC's problems, but in reality, it literally impacts everything that we deal with on a regular basis in some form or fashion. So this should encourage people to, A, be outraged, and B, demand that their government serves them. What's not happening is that, which is why we are losing the information and messaging war, which is what we need to overcome. So, all of that to say, it's 9 o'clock, so they're still talking about New Jersey. Why? Why are we still talking about New Jersey? Why is it only ever fucking New Jersey? Is it because Mamdani's winning? Is that what it is? Like, oh.
Right, and remember, the president's own remarks evolved from when on 60 Minutes on Sunday, he said, I'd rather vote for a bad Democrat than a communist.
Thank you
so
for
Cuomo
the follow.
Fixated on those words and said he's saying he would take anything over what he perceives to be a communist. But again, President Trump changes that point of view the next day.
What's happening with the mayor race? Why are none of these live streams showing us what's happening? Like, I'm not even seeing why are we not seeing numbers? Bro. This is batshit insane.
New Yorkers.
Our central platform here, of course, is TV, or what they call
It's
linear TV.
they're showing every other position other than mayor. City Council District 8, 15, 32,651.
It's not,
bro.
You know, there's no particular rhyme or reason.
Bro.
Sometimes there's
and be like, look, like, let's put all this bullshit aside. We need to worry about what's going on here.
And they're not talking. Oh my God.
From Donald Trump.
Where are the numbers?
I would say number one, his most viral clip nationally was on Israel. There's no question about it.
Call it yet?
Holy shit! Folks, we finally found one.
9:03. 9:03 p.m.
And look at that. 51%
HQ.
Zoran. That is exactly why they're not showing.
We're another first for Lichtman Live.
4 minutes ago, they posted that the polls are closed.
36% of the votes are in. So there's a significant
we called it
possibility of this change.
Man, how did they get that in so quick?
Wow. The fact that we had to seriously click on, 10 different videos just to get the polls, which is from CNN. Damn. Criminy. Okay. Give us some info. I bet half the people there are just there for the open bar. I mean, to be fair. Too early to call my ass. Zoran won. Everyone knows it. Everyone is just too scared to be the first one to call it. Well, I mean, only 36% of the votes are in. So let's not go too crazy. But, I mean, that is pretty stark that these are the numbers that are coming in already. Suck it, Trump. Yeah, no, I can't argue with that. So we'll keep tabbing to this one for the rest of the stream. We're gonna do one more health.
You did say
we're gonna do one more health insurance related video, partially because it ties into the shutdown that we've been dealing with, and how healthcare ties in directly into wellness and well-being, like Head Start, WIC, SNAP, and all these other things. If you can't eat, and if you can't eat healthy and well, guess what you're going to end up doing? Going to the hospital and needing healthcare. But health insurance is the devil, and here we have Taylor Lorenz helping us with that.
That Brian Thompson murdered tens of thousands of people. And I really, murdered?
Yes.
I do believe that insurance companies denying life-saving care is murder. You are one of the millions of Americans in this country that has watched someone that you love and care about deeply suffer and die because an insurance company chose to deny them life-saving care. It is natural to wish the same fate, as your loved one on the people responsible for your loved ones.
Careful, the sheriff in Perry County, Tennessee might arrest you for threatening CEOs of insurance companies for saying that.
Death. Again, that is not a very enlightened position. I wish that we could all be kumbaya. However, I think millions of Americans have watched the people they care about die brutal deaths. And I do think that we, again, need to acknowledge the violence of these systems. It is wild to me that we just finished an entire election cycle and healthcare was...
Nobody talked about it.
I mean, look at this. This is a bipartisan issue. This is not something
this is an older video, right? Just to be clear, this is 10 months ago. But what they're talking about is still relevant today. Why? Because, again, people do die by the thousands every year due to denied healthcare policy claims, which is, again, something that insurance companies are alleging that they will cover, right? Their promise to you is if you pay for our insurance package and give us money every month and then pay a deductible when you need it, we will make sure that you're covered and taken care of. And then they keep denying these claims, which results in the deaths of 60,000 plus Americans every single year. It is murder. It's legalized murder. It is murder through paperwork, but it is murder nevertheless. And it needs to be treated, it needs to be said out loud much more often and much more from the chest that what these insurance companies are doing and what these policies are about is healthcare denial, which results in the deaths of thousands of Americans every single year.
That's on the left or the right. This is something that all Americans are feeling. 62% of Americans, a recent Gallup poll said, believe that it is the federal government's responsibility to provide health care. We are the only developed nation that does not have sort of public health care.
Yeah, but Taylor,
Yeah,
I know, but you wrote that people have justified hatred toward insurance company CEOs because these executives are responsible for unfathomable amount of death and suffering. But aren't the real villains members of Congress who have so far lacked the backbone to stand up to the healthcare industry and its leaders?
Hold on a second. I thought News Nation was a conservative rag. Is News Nation actually... I don't want to say good. I don't want to say that. But is News Nation actually a decent news network? Because they must be new. They have to be new. They must be up and coming. But are they actually willing to talk about real issues the right way? Libs and conservatives. So there's bias, but both ways, depending on who's delivering the story. Okay, I can live with that.
Legions of lobbyists, that's where change happens.
I completely agree that that's where meaningful change happens. We need to figure out how to hold the system accountable. And I think it is very telling that the Congress people have intentionally downplayed and ignored this issue.
Yeah, I'm just, given the fact that you have a platform, and listen, I can read what people are posting too, and I hear what they're saying too. And I've had my own battles with insurance companies. It's infuriating, and it can be heartbreaking when you're facing a life-threatening condition. But to continue to talk about these CEOs are murdering people, when it's Congress, it's up to Congress to change. Okay, so
if I had waited another 30 seconds, I would have seen that she's trying to play either A, devil's advocate, or defend capitalism in this.
Change the laws. These guys are just doing their jobs and making money.
Well, exactly. And that is blood money. And I would say it is quite an unethical business to be in. I think if I was making a living denying people life-saving healthcare, I would really question my life choices. That said, as you mentioned, there are lots of parasitic, terrible, evil businesses out here in America. The healthcare industry is not the only one. We also have oil and gas, doing terrible things. We need lawmakers to take this seriously. We need to keep the focus on people in power. And lawmakers and the media need to make people feel heard. Because again, right now we're seeing unprecedented levels of radicalization on this issue. People are feeling like the media and these lawmakers are scolding them instead of making them feel heard. And so we really need people in power.
Which reminds me, one of the key things in messaging that is often lost from people in power, especially Congress, journalism, myself included, is the ability to make people feel heard. And that word is empathy. Crazy, right? And every time I think I'm being empathetic, it turns out I'm not. And that's the thing. We are not taught empathy in this country. Not even in our society, never mind school or in education, right? But empathetic communication is just non-existent in our country, in our societal norms, in our communities, in the workplace, in school, professionally, even amongst friends. It is difficult to reach each other on the empathetic level to where we feel heard and understood rather than talked to or sympathized with, right? And it's crazy because it is such a simple thing. And that is what we are missing. That is what we are literally, that is what is preventing us from achieving true unity in language and message. Crazy.
Or to listen to the public. Listen to the American public and take their anger seriously, because this is a barbaric system that desperately needs reform.
Taylor Lawrence, thanks so much for coming on and sharing that. Really appreciate it.
So I guess this lady must have been the more conservative journalist on this, but that is funny. And it is true that these reporters, they will try and interrupt you, and they will try and get under your skin one way or another. There was a less delay, because that's part of it, is the delay. They try and talk over you to cover the delay, and that's something, if you've never done media before, is extremely confusing to understand and grasp, for that matter, that there's a delay. Happened to me, actually. I was doing a CNN interview, and the lady was saying hi, but there was a 2-second delay, so I was like, hi, and then she responded to my 2-second delay, oh, hello there, and then I said, oh, hi. For a second time, she's like, Sam, there is a delay. Oh, my bad. All of which is to say, that seemed to be a fairly heated exchange, but it definitely, they at least allowed Taylor to speak her piece, which is often not the case. That's usually, while they're trying to speak their piece, they're usually more interrupted, or they're denied, or they're talked over, or we're having some technical difficulties. We'll get back to Taylor in 5, 10, 20 minutes maybe, or not at all. Here's Tom with the weather. So, I did find that pretty enjoyable, actually. Okay, yeah. Perry County is getting the pantsuit off of it over that. Oh, I 100% hope so. I really, truly hope so. Let's see. The insurance companies pay off our Congress, which is why money in politics is one of the first things that needs to go. Mom went ahead after the old guard of the Dems, too. He's right. We can't just direct our anger at Trump and the Rups. We need to throw some at the current Dems in Congress. 100%. I 100% agree with holding both parties accountable, not just one or the other. The old guard needs to go save Bernie. No, Bernie needs to go. He 100% needs to go. His trying to play both sides of Israel and his trying to say that Trump has some good ideas or this, that, and the other. We need to protect Trump's policies on a strong and secure border. Like, no. Bernie, to me, has lost the plot. I get that he's been doing this for 40 years or whatever, but as far as I'm concerned, Bernie has lost the plot. And if that means one day I don't get his endorsement, oh well. Oh well, because he has lost the plot. Let's just clean slate it. No, I 100% agree. Let's clean slate this sucker and really, really get some work done in Congress. Because that's true. Congress is where the change happens, but you can't get the change to happen if we keep re-electing incumbents for 40 years, right? So, what does that bring us to? That brings us to reform.
As the government shutdown is set to become the longest in history this week, the central fight is whether to extend expiring subsidies under Obamacare. Democrats have been demanding an extension, while Republican leaders say reopen the government first before anything else. Caught in the middle is the American public hurt by this unfolding crisis. So how will this get resolved? Joining me now, a Republican congressman, he was also a former Democrat, but now an ally of President Trump's, Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey.
The fucking pipeline of liberals and leftists to Trump is pretty disturbing, to say the least, because there are many people that I have been working with since 2017 that were extreme left-wing activists who are now full-bore MAGA, and I just don't understand how that transition occurs. Democrats going Republican, sure, fine, but, like, I don't understand the pipeline. I don't understand the transition. This is what MAGA fears the most, that the Dem Party is going to clean house and start bringing young folk to replace the old guard. They know the old guard won't do shit. The new batch of young Dems will. But that's the thing. That would also require the old guard Democrats to step aside, which isn't happening in any sense of the word.
Congressman, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Republican leaders have said they will not consider this extension or any extension over these expiring Obamacare subsidies until after the government is reopened. But as you know, Americans are starting to see their premiums rise, including in New Jersey, where some families could be forced to spend as much as 30% of their income on health care. Given that, are you okay with the way your party leadership's been handling this issue?
Look, I'm fine with the way they've been handling it because I really want to give what I think is an objective viewpoint to this, not a partisan one. Oh, boy. We're just simply asking to keep government open. When I say we, I mean Republicans. You know, for those...
Buddy, you're already not being objective, because if the Republicans wanted to keep the government open, you don't need the Democrats for that. You literally don't. You could literally... Mike Johnson could convene Congress tomorrow. Literally right this second. He can convene it right now and force everyone to be there until a bill is finally agreed upon. So no, don't sit there and lie saying that Republicans want to keep the government open, because that's not even remotely true.
watching and listening out there, the continuing resolution is a little mini budget for 7 weeks. It's Joe Biden's budget. There's nothing in there from Trump. There's nothing in there from Congress. There's nothing Republican in there. It is a continuation for 7 weeks of Joe Biden's budget. It is unparalleled and unheard of that the Democrats would not support this and vote for it. I know why. Because if Chuck Schumer was to cooperate and vote for it, then the most radical part of his leadership is really going to go after him.
But Mr. Van Drew,
you can't negotiate.
I was just going to.
Buddy, how partisan? I'm just trying to be objective. And then you go on the most partisan slant that you could ever possibly go on. I'm not hearing this risking voter backlash.
So you've raised concerns about health care and the impact of having a plan or not having a plan for the GOP. What are the political ramifications for Republicans as we head into the midterms if the GOP does not?
There we go. That's what we wanted to hear.
Let's be clear. We need to get the government open to do all the things we need to do. Republicans want to do that. Let's be equally clear. As soon as we do that, we've immediately got to start doing something about the Affordable Care Act subsidies. It is very, very important, those tax credits. It is not fair to the American people. Many of them depend upon it. Now, should we change it? Absolutely. I think in the beginning, we need to do a renewal with some minor changes, moderate changes, and then look for a better system and work for a year and make sure we come up with a better system. This has failed. It's cost a fortune. It's been
okay. So CNN got a partisan hack to do an interview that was trying to be catchy with the title. But the reality is Republicans want their cake and want to eat it too in Congress. And it's even funnier because Trump said he had a health care plan, which we all know he didn't. But the fact of the matter is he said he had one, and we're not even seeing his alternative. Even now, at this point, we're still not hearing what is the alternative to the Affordable Care Act. What is the Trump health care plan? What is Trump with Medicare? Like, again, the only thing we have seen with this administration actively trying to do with health care is to gut Medicare by $3 trillion. And to allow the Affordable Care Act subsidies to expire. That so far has been the only things, the only clues to the Trump administration's healthcare plan that we have seen or heard of. That's it. That is all we have seen. Massive, massive, massive cuts to federal spending in Medicare and allowing the subsidies to expire. So what plan do you guys have? The Trump Care Act, where there's going to be government subsidies for health insurance, but Trump's name is going to be on it? Because the only alternative to this system is universal health care, Medicare for all. That is the only alternative. Everything else is still this system with different colors, different bells and whistles. If health insurance exists, it is still the same system. If it isn't universal health care, it is still this system. And that's the whole problem. So the Democrat is way ahead in Jersey, so it looks like the Jersey election is coming together, and it looks like it'll be the Democrat. Especially leftists. I don't understand how leftists go MAGA. Dems are already kind of close. No, I agree, and I don't understand it myself. So, dang it, right when I clicked on here. Is this him being paused? Bro, come on. You were the only one with any sort of polling information.
Especially when the economic numbers are where they are. And look at how the vote break went there. 72% at last check went for Zoran Mamdani, of people who said that they wanted a change candidate.
Well, there we go.
Overwhelmingly here. So the question is going to be,
but where's the polls?
If you're going to read into anything from New York City,
Jesus, I hate this shit.
How do you message
And this is the
yourself
Pacman
as a
show.
change candidate if you're a Democrat in one of these races. Now, I will say, here's my grain of salt. I've been saying it all night, and I think it's important to remember. New York City is very specific. There's a lot of nuance that is very...
by a community organizer here in Astoria.
Okay, so at least this one is finally saying something. Early results. Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness, there we go. 51.57% of the expected vote. So that lead, I told you, when it's so few, those numbers can change dramatically. Silwa is clearly not going to win this thing, but Andrew, unfortunately, could come up from behind and win this thing.
You've been canvassing, you've been at, on the front lines, if you will, campaigning for Mamdani. So how are you feeling right now in this moment?
I feel really proud of the coalition that we've pulled together. This is a historic moment. This is a hopeful moment. I think especially throughout this campaign, there's been so much Islamophobia and hate and vitriol towards Mamdani, and so much of that resonated with our community, and now we get to celebrate so much of the labor that went into
that
this
diner
race.
looks outstanding. I want to eat there. That place looks delicious.
Of course, this is part of his assembly district. So, how hopeful are you when it comes to coming out on the other side of this? And what are some of those issues of why you are supporting him?
Why is nobody, and I mean literally nobody, talking about the polls? Where are the actual polls?
I think so much of his support.
Not allowed in until around 8 o'clock.
And why are you so damn focused about New Jersey governor?
That's kind of the theme that we've been seeing for the
This
last
is
half an hour to
this
an
would
hour.
be the equivalent of watching a presidential election live poll, and they're only talking about Congress or senator campaigns that are happening the same year. Are you fucking serious? The only thing people care about right now is the New York City mayor race, and you can't be bothered to put it on here. All right, CNN Live, New York City mayor poll. You seriously, come on. None of these are live. None of these are live. I specifically looked for live. I typed in live. All right, so here's... Okay, that's Mamdani speaking right now. And everybody...
that we have been dreaming of for more than a year. And as much as things
oh, this was a former...
New Jersey. John, are they watching CNN there? Do they know that we just awarded them the crown?
So they are going out of their way to only talk about that. Awesome. Okay, so even if I am actively trying to cover the race here, the New York City mayor race, but it is evidently not wanting to come out. They do not want to cover the polls at all. Okay then, if that changes.
Has been elected as governor of New Jersey. The four-term U.S. representative pledged to tackle rising concerns with President Donald Trump for failing to reduce prices as he had promised during the 2024 campaign.
So she jumped immediately
Joining
on
me
the
to talk a little bit about Cheryl's
on
campaign is Sagar Meghani. Sagar, just remind us kind of how we got to this point and wrap up, how Mikey Sherrill's campaign really looked this year.
Yeah, like Abigail Smenberger in Virginia, Mikey Sherrill was elected to the House in 2018 in the election that allowed Democrats.
So whatever. Once we finally get something with New York City, if there's anything with New York City, we'll cover that. Okay, we got 30 minutes. All right.
Back here in the U.S., the investigation after what authorities are calling an intentional explosion at a building on the campus of Harvard's medical school. The university releasing images of two people they believe may have been involved and are asking for the public's help to identify them. Here's ABC's Andrew
Check
Dimber.
the link above. Okay.
Tonight, authorities are searching for these people they say are suspects in connection with an explosion on Harvard's campus.
It's really loud.
I couldn't believe how loud it was.
Authorities say they responded to a fire alarm at Harvard's medical school just before 3 a.m. The responding officer allegedly attempted...
Past the hour after the polls had...
All right, hold on here. Let's do this real quick.
Close. And Zoran Mamdani, the 34-year-old Democratic Socialist, is the winner, as expected, and will be the next mayor here in New York City. Numbers coming in early. The check mark is next to Mamdani, and he ran a campaign after, winning in a crowded Democratic primary field that was impressive to many, driven by the youth vote here in New York City. On the left side of the Democratic Party, without a doubt, as you look at his campaign headquarters.
Yeah, but this is 35% of the vote in. I don't think you can project that soon.
And now, Mamdani, just turning 34 years of age, will be the next mayor in the largest city in the country. Those are some early figures coming in, bottom of the screen, 51.7%, with Andrew Cuomo at just under 40% and Curtis Sliwa at 8%. Again, early numbers, but the projection, given the data that we had, was more than enough to make this decision early in the night.
And these numbers are...
But News Nation is a very new news network. I'm not saying I don't believe that he should win, but at 35% in, I don't think you can project that. SI. Hold on, I'm trying to think, what is SI? I can't... Staten Island, okay. Well, that's the thing. None of these networks have been saying which polling has been completed.
Interesting, because if they hold true on... Is this breakdown... We just are projecting him to win the race.
That's right.
These are...
This is
based on nothing.
But no, New York gives a big dump right after you get all the early votes.
You
already have almost 750,000.
That's probably most of the early vote.
Yeah.
Right.
And so look, this will be a record turnout year. These are a big basket of votes. If this percentage structure stays the same, it answers the question of the mandate.
Right.
That's right. Mamdani, which means that he did even better.
Chris fucking Cuomo is on News Nation. Wow. I don't remember. Either which way, though, News Nation having him on there, yikes. That's why I thought News Nation was another conservative rag.
This election, but I'm saying if it holds, it becomes a very interesting plus-minus for him, because there's the promise versus the promises kept, which can be tricky, especially because a mayor's not as powerful as a president or governor.
Well, I take that with a grain of salt. I would rather there be 70% of the vote in and that be able to tell us what the projections are, because 35% is just simply not enough time, or not enough voters. I don't buy that. And then CNN cannot stop looking at every other race under the sun and still talking about New Jersey. Considering all of these elections are New York City mayoral election, and then they are talking about everyone else, is just... Go figure. And is this lady still talking about the governor?
Weeks of the campaign. We expect to hear from Jack Ciattarelli at some point. We also expect to hear from Mikey Sherrill at her headquarters. But for now, the watching and waiting has turned into the what happened once again for Jack Ciattarelli.
Mike, thank you so much for that reporting on the ground there from Jack Ciattarelli's campaign headquarters tonight. We will continue to keep our eye.
No, I saw you. I saw that. Where's the NBC? Where is it? Show me. Because I'm not... I am clearly not seeing it. Where did Silva get his 8% from Staten Island? Yeah, I mean, that is a very good question. All right, here we go.
This is the Democratic nominee in one of the most strongly Democratic cities in the United States.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. 60% of the vote with that strong of a lead, I buy that.
And in the general election, you're looking at maybe, a 10-point win, maybe a high single-digit win. So there ended up being a lot of folks in the city who were not willing to vote for Zoran Mamdani, even though he's with the Democrats, and even though the Democrats typically win New York City elections, by open lengths. So there was consolidation here. I think it's noteworthy as well. In our exit poll, we asked folks if it was just a two-person race, Cuomo versus Mamdani, and it was basically dead even in our exit poll there. So if you're the Cuomo campaign, you're seeing this consolidation. One thing you're probably thinking of is, geez, hey, they got Eric Adams, the incumbent mayor, to drop out and get behind Cuomo. What if they could have actually gotten Curtis Sliwa out of this race and gotten full consolidation? This thing would be, in fact, a real nail biter right now. And just, one final point as we watch the final results come in with Cuomo losing. Probably going to be a lot of talk that this is the end of that Cuomo dynasty, that goes back decades, I should say, with his father. His father, almost 50 years ago, ran for mayor of New York City, lost the Democratic primary, continued his candidacy as a third-party candidate in the general election, just like his son. And Mario Cuomo lost that election to Ed Koch, 50 to 41%. And that might be exactly where this thing lands tonight.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Well, they do say history
that's wild.
Itself. Thank you, Steve. Keep us posted. We're going to come back to you with any other big updates.
Okay, so first of all, that's hilarious that Papa lost at almost the exact same polling and results as his son is about to lose. That's hilarious to me. History repeats in funny ways. I love that. History tends to repeat. Yes. Bring the petty. I hope he never returns. Go away. Yep. Absolutely hilarious, actually, turn of events with that. So, Mamdani projected to win. Could be a 10-point lead. Could be a single-digit lead. But with 60% of the vote, there's still some up in arms possible, but like an upset is extremely unlikely. What is concerning is the exit polling that put Cuomo and Mamdani at 50-50, which is crazy because, like, how far has New York fallen if there is really that much of a split belief on having Cuomo, a neoliberal, basically a conservative with the Trump endorsement, versus Mamdani, who is actively trying to do something different and better for the people. To me, that speaks heavily on I think how badly Democrats have been messaging broadly in America for decades. Like they don't stand for anything. They've never pushed for improving anything. They don't stand for the American people. They don't stand for the working class. They have no legs to stand on. And it is proven by the simple fact that Cuomo still has that much of a hold from traditional Democrats, while Mamdani, who is a historical Democrat, like an FDR Democrat, is ahead, but would be neck and neck if it was a 1v1. Like, that's my takeaway, is how far the Democrats have fallen, that having an FDR New Deal Democrat style candidate is barely enough to hold sway in an election. I don't think there's two-stage voting if the results are significant, right? Like, there would be two-stage voting if it was much, much closer. But I could be mistaken. New York might have different processes than that. Pop culture. I miss your quips on stream. You definitely deliver. So we got a lot of the election results being projected and coming in now. Virginia Attorney General, the governor of New Jersey. So overall, it does seem like Democrats and left-leaning Democrats are dominating in elections, which could be signs of changing times. But it's really going to be interesting to see how this starts impacting the midterm elections. Also, worth mentioning,
an overwhelming rejection
right
of Trump's failed economy. Third, affordability is a winning message for Democrats.
And cost of living.
Not hyper-focusing on Trump, focusing on people's
or cost of living and crime being the number two, like the top two concerns of the American people. Cost of living being universal.
Each one of these candidates have now built a new winning coalition. Up record numbers of independents, non-college, black males, young voters. All of those people, that coalition that Donald Trump built in this last election has now bled over and is now voting Democrat. So my top takeaway is that Trump has a huge problem. I'm curious how Democrats are going to leverage this now in the shutdown fight, because they've had an incredible win tonight.
Okay.
And a rejection of the president.
I'm going to come to you in one sec, but we do have another projection to make. NBC News can now project that Jay Jones has won the race for Attorney General.
I got a little complacent there with that. So we were covering the explosion on Harvard.
To stop two masked men fleeing the building. Inside, campus police say they discovered what seemed to be the scene of an explosion on the 4th floor. The Boston Fire Department later saying that explosion was intentionally set. The incident playing out at Harvard's Goldenson building, normally housing the Department of Neurobiology and other science facilities. No additional devices were found, according to authorities, but sources tell ABC News the explosive device used was not a bomb.
That would be terrible if somebody got hurt. I can't even imagine.
Tonight, Harvard says that building is now reopened and there is no continued threat to the community. Meanwhile, the FBI is on scene trying to piece together who did this and why. No word.
Okay, so this story is a whodunit story. It was an explosion that wasn't a bomb. So did somebody get executed? Like, did these two guys kill somebody and then walk away and then hide the body? Like, what? Talk about a story that is not being told whatsoever. Let's see. I heard MTG was on The View today and that none of them pushed back on our lies. Shocking. I have to say that I have not seen my election area be crowded today in a long time until now. No, that was pretty crazy too, is when I went to vote for my local elections, the polling place was extremely empty. But obviously, Ohio versus New York City. But I really hope that more and more voter turnout occurs over the next few months and election cycles, because maybe people are finally beginning to realize, like, their vote matters and that politics is not something to just stand on the sidelines with anymore. Let's see. They are going off at Zoran's campaign HQ. Just shows that no one takes Trump's threat seriously. In fact, it gets more people out to vote. Yeah, so it could very well... I mean, this could be a changing tide. I really hope so. I don't necessarily want to run as a Republican, but I think, unfortunately, with the amount of control that this administration has over just about everything, and the lengths that they are willing to go to maintain and consolidate power, and the fact that so many of these state legislators just passed new gerrymandered voting districts, it would take something unprecedented to undermine those districts to turn them blue, and Ohio is one of them. It will if the ones who won blue flips actually work for the people, their employers. So that's the outlook for the midterms after tonight's results. So that's the thing. I don't think the midterms have changed. And I think, if anything, this will cause the administration to panic and become far more aggressive and overt in its fascistic behaviors. I think what we are going to see happen in the midterms is more ICE scares, more National Guard scares and intimidation, and probably more gerrymandering efforts. I genuinely believe that we are going to see elections start getting stolen and partisanship go just off the rails, to the point where Democrats, I think, will start being targeted directly and implicitly, making the elections definitely not fair and certainly not democratic. I can't say for sure how that's going to end up looking or how the full picture is going to be painted, but this is a wake-up call to the administration, and the only feedback this administration ever accepts is patting themselves on the back. So if that isn't what's going to happen, then it's anger and outrage and lashing out and ignoring the courts and ignoring this and ignoring that. So my guess is that the midterms are going to be very dystopian. 4 years until the government reopens. I mean, that's kind of where my head is at. I think they may very well keep this game afloat for as long as their constituents or their base or their donors, really their donors, allow it to happen. Because again, this is a consolidation of power. I don't think this has anything to do with electoralism or appealing to MAGA supporters. I think this is about consolidation of power. I think this is a coup d'etat. I think this is eroding the Constitution's effectiveness entirely. So to me, I don't think this changes anything about the midterms. I think what it does, however, is give activists and left-leaning individuals a spark of hope with which they can build movements on to resist and to dissent. That's what I think is going to happen. I don't necessarily think we're going to get a blue wave, because I don't think we're going to get fair elections this midterm season. Even Fox News is calling it for Zoran. 75% was under 30 for Mamdani. So millennials definitely came out in droves for their fellow millennial. They can go into that Lincoln bathroom and eat the marble. The last time they had a movement, they failed miserably at it, and that was after 2018. No, I don't disagree. So I guess really all we can do is hope and pray that we have fair elections coming up, and that this wave of populism, of focusing on the needs of the many, is something that continues to grow, because then that means even if you run as a Republican, even if you run as a Democrat, so long as that is your message, you have a very, very strong chance of primarying an incumbent. And that is what we should be focusing on in the weeks and months to come. Let's see. All right, let's do a dystopian video, and then we'll end on good
they say birds
videos.
of a feather
Like on
flock
good news.
together. Well, some communities around the country are coming together to fight against what they say is a concerning form of surveillance. AI startup Flock Safety is building an army of police tech. They are most recognizable for their automatic license plate readers you may have heard of, which snap a picture of the car's plate as it drives by. Police say the technology helps them solve crimes like kidnappings, murders, and stolen vehicles. And while this tech, it has existed for some time, Flock is now the first to centralize it into a single nationwide database that thousands of police departments can access at any time without a warrant. So we're
Holy police state, Batman. A centralized national database that any police agency can access without a warrant at any time. Wow. Oh, that's true. I did skip the Cheney video. But it's a Democracy Now! Video that's a legacy video, so but you're right, I did forget to mention Cheney today, so Did I put that in our... I did not put that in the headline. Hey, but you know what the best way to remember a war criminal is? Ignoring them. Ignoring them and completely just destroying their legacy and undoing all of the things that made them good. I think if we can memorialize Dick Cheney's crimes and then posthumously hold him accountable, I think that is the method we should take. But back to this dystopian nightmare.
We're going to bring in NBC News cybersecurity and tech reporter Kevin Collier, who has been reporting on this story. Kevin, thanks for joining us. Walk us through the privacy concerns here that's leading to some of this pushback.
Right. So the U.S. has had for years these cameras that record cars' license plates as they drive by certain highways, spots, intersections in towns and cities. But what communities across the country are pushing back on now is that Flock Safety has for the first time created this centralized database where more than 3,000 law enforcement offices across the country are working together, sharing real-time location information of everybody that drives by. None of them need a warrant to access it. So I spoke with half a dozen people from a range of political affiliations who are pushing back. And there's definitely something in the air. For some people, it's this looming sense that as tech tracks us more and more, they're getting sick and fed up of feeling like they're being tracked. And these cameras are the biggest example of that. For others, it's the reality that even though Flock no longer contracts directly with the Department of Homeland Security, local police in sanctuary cities even have been using Flock contracts to look up drivers' locations on behalf of ICE to aid with investigations. And they want to stop their local police, their tax dollars from doing that.
And honestly, that is all the more that needs to be said on that. Flock was a contract with the Department of Homeland Security. Law enforcement is using Flock to help ICE capture, kidnap, and traffic brown people. So, yeah, no, that is outrageous, and everybody should be outraged for the right reasons. It is an extreme overstep of privacy. It is a surveillance state. It is a police state. And they are acting without warrants or the judiciary backing them by using this system. Like, this is not okay. This is, again, undemocratic behavior. And people should be upset and scared and afraid and pushing back against it. It's always a good day for Cheney to be dead. That's hilarious. Speaking of cameras, I heard people are getting these robots to do housework, and it's someone using VR to see into their homes, so that's very creepy. I wouldn't doubt that. I wouldn't doubt that, but I also wouldn't doubt that there aren't AI capabilities that can map your home in real time and do stuff. Like, again, the technology is there to do most or some of these things that they're saying can only be done through VR. The fact that we are pushing forward for creating robotic slave labor when we can't even agree on civil liberties and equality for people under protected classes is a huge, huge misstep. I say about Cheney what Hudson said in 1968 on the express elevator to hell going down. Who would have thought I'd be able to use that line 30 years later? That is funny. Como going game over. Yep. So, the good news video that I wanted to do is something like this.
This is great news. Right now, green sea turtles are no longer considered endangered. This season, we saw the second highest number of green sea turtle nests in Florida's history. Gulf Coast News reporter Kendall Brandt is on Captiva, finding out what this means for wildlife rules.
I think they are one of the most beautiful species of sea turtle. They are the largest hard-shelled sea turtle species, but they have these kind of small pea little heads. So that always makes me laugh when I see them. And then I just am constantly inspired by them.
Inspired by their resilience, as the population of green sea turtles has grown by 28% since 1970, according to the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, a number prompting them to no longer label the species as endangered.
The work that researchers have been doing has been decades long. So to see that it's the efforts have not gone to waste and that these populations are increasing is really motivating.
Researchers have worked since the 70s to keep nests safe and track the population. The IUCN even credits community members for taking action.
Here on Sanibel and Captiva, we had 424 green turtles hatch. Compare that to last year, we only had 34.
But naturalists like Ranger Rob Howell say they worry the new classification could hurt the population.
I do think it was a little premature that they did this, just in the sense that they kind of did the same thing with manatees. And what ended up happening was it was then easier to pass legislation to hurt some of these protected areas where these animals live. And because of that, now their numbers are going down. And I fear the same thing may happen.
The team at the Sanibel...
You know, can't we just have good news? But valid, because this administration will absolutely use any trick in the book to get its way. And what it wants to do is develop every facet of our natural world to turn into profit in some way, form, or fashion, whether that is drilling for oil, whether that is industrial waste, whether that's industrialization. They don't fucking care. They just see dollar signs and that's all they care about. Meanwhile, our ecosystem requires a diversity of biological life in order to sustain itself. Otherwise, our entire biome collapses and we die. Period. Dot. End of story. And we keep fucking around with this. And we need to stop. But it is heartwarming enough, I guess, despite that very dark exclamation point, it is good to know that conservation efforts have been effective for the sea turtles. I don't know if they will take my vote as I'm from Wisconsin. Hey, it could be a provisional ballot. You never know. I guess I forgot how to drink water. My bad. All right. And then a sort of feel-good movie or video is this one. So I don't know how much of a feel-good it is because of the fact that it has to do with SNAP recipients not getting their money, but it is showing a sense of community. So hopefully this isn't a dystopian video.
In Portland, Oregon's taking action to help those who lost SNAP benefits. Heritage Coffee raised more than $300,000 to offer meals to those in need. Now customers who ask for a SNAP breakfast get a breakfast burrito and a coffee free of charge. And the owner of Heritage Coffee, Josh White, is here to tell us more about that. Josh, thanks so much for coming on. I know this all started with an 11-year-old boy coming to your shop and saying his family's benefits had run out. What was it about that interaction that made you want to not only give him a free meal, but others free meals too?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me on. You know, our story began right before that. The day before, we put out on our Instagram that if you are losing your SNAP benefits come November 1st, so this is last Saturday, we will feed you. And then 11-year-old child came in a couple days before, and he asked for the SNAP breakfast a couple days early. He walked himself to our cafe by himself because a child was hungry. And so there was a bit of this rage inside of me. So we just tweeted out, it's open now. If you're hungry, do not go to bed hungry tonight.
Now you've set up this donation page and already raised more than $300,000 to fund these free meals. Did you expect that level of support?
You know, at the very beginning, we didn't even have a donation page. The idea of getting donations wasn't even in my mind. Someone in the comments actually said you should set up one. And we set it up because that comment had more likes than the actual post. Here we are right now, I believe now 7 days, a week later, and we're actually nearing $350,000 donated to keep Portland fed.
So what kind of reaction are you seeing from your paying customers and from those who are getting this free breakfast?
Well, typically we have about 40 to 50 sales a day. I can guarantee you right now, we've already done 60 to 80 sales. Yesterday, we served over 500 people in our little 450 square foot coffee shop. And what I'm seeing from people who are receiving our SNAP breakfast, there's two things. Number one, they feel seen. We kind of have a code word for them. We do not ask for proof, no questions asked, no proof needed, just order the SNAP breakfast. And they're saying thank you because they feel like they're being seen right now. The other major part is half of our customers are children. And I think the world needs to know that these are not just adults, these are children who are also looking for food.
You say you were up to about $350,000 now. What happens to that money if SNAP benefits are reinstated before you run out? Any plans on how you'll spend the rest?
Absolutely. So again, we're only a week into this. We are not mutual aid. I'm a coffee shop. And so we are learning after our shop is closed at night. I'm doing all the research and development with our team that we can to make sure that these funds are distributed. But one thing that we're already actively doing right now is we're working with some of the most underprivileged and also under-resourced mutual aid groups that are working in the margins with a lot of marginalized communities here. And so we're putting together a game plan to be able to distribute a good chunk of that money donated to people who are not typically seen by the national news or media.
Okay. That was dystopian. That was dystopian wrapped in community and feel good. But that was dystopian. Why was it dystopian, Sam? That sounded like a feel good story to me. Well, here's the problem. Okay. A tiny little coffee shop in Portland made this viral thing by helping people in the community by offering a free meal from their little coffee shop. Just a little sandwich and a coffee to try and give back to their community because they felt that it was something that they needed to do as a business to give back to the community that has kept them going, right? And it has turned into a fairly large thing. $350,000 of donations is pretty good. But that's still one small business, 450 square feet. He probably only has like 5 employees. He can't even spend, he said himself, there was only like 60 to 80 customers that he was serving each day, right? And that shop cannot even spend or utilize $350,000. So now he has to try and find mutual aid groups to help give them that money, which in of itself runs into problems because if you get money as a nonprofit and you're trying to give that money to a different nonprofit or as a for-profit but to a nonprofit, like there are legal hurdles that you have to go through, right? Which ends up costing money, part of that being from the donations, right? So it's this ridiculous capitalist hellscape that we constantly find ourselves in, that even when you achieve community and even when you achieve pooled funds, the ability to distribute those funds is still shackled by various capitalist elements. So, on the one hand, absolutely great example of community coalescing in hard times. That is what we need. That is what should be happening. And what we should be doing on top of that is building stronger communities and networks to rely on ourselves so that these things don't impact us nearly as hard. On the flip side, we still need to make sure that our government serves us, but before we can get there, we need to make sure we're alive to resist them, right? The dystopian aspect is that he had to emphasize throughout the 3 minutes of fame that he got that these were children, half of which were children coming for this free meal, meaning children are going hungry in America right now. Before the money stopped, before the money even stopped, there were hungry kids in America who were desperate for a meal. Not Nigeria, not Saskatchewan, Bogota, not Rio de Janeiro in the poor parts there, not Colombia, not Burkina Faso, right? None of these countries that are constantly being depicted as impoverished third world countries. The United States of America, 1 in 5 children are hungry. And that is only going to increase when SNAP and all these other government subsidized programs are no longer funded. And that man's response to that reality was, I will feed these children, or I will feed members of my community who come here. That part is great. The context, though, dystopian nightmare. Now, I would have much preferred to end on a happy note. That's why I tried doing that video, but I guess I should have done the turtles last. We could have ended on the turtles. Are we turtly enough for the Turtle Club? So, with that being said, thank you for watching, joining us on the stream. Thank you for participating. I really and truly appreciate every single one of you. Go home and share Samuel Ronan at Twitch. Let's build this thing, right? Let's make those efforts made by the coffee shop not in vain. The faster and stronger we can build a platform to resist this administration, the better off we will all be. So, with that, tomorrow we will be live again, 7 p.m. Eastern. Worldwide Wednesdays, we'll be talking about foreign policy, foreign events, and we will be discussing the things that have happened. We will probably make an emphasis to cover Israel, Palestine, and Russia, Ukraine. But there is a whole lot of other world out there as well, and we are going to have to cover that. Latin America, I'm sure, is still dealing with Trump's aggression, and we know that things are going to escalate in our southern hemisphere. So with that being said, I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed your stream here with us today, and have yourself a great rest of your night. Samuel Ronan, your president, out.